All right. Hello, hello. Okay. All right. Sorry that went on a little longer than it should have, but I accidentally locked myself out of my room, so I had to jump through a window. Yeah, so sorry about that. I was only gonna do two songs, but yeah, I locked myself out. So you guys got hit with that third one for a little longer um, than you were supposed to. But yeah, got out the mic today. How sound check everybody? Is the sound good? Is it okay? Um, yeah, does it sound good and everything? Because I'm using this. I usually like using my headphones because I know for sure that they work and are very comfy, stuff like that. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Awesome. Alrighty. I was thinking of doing, so just so you guys know, I've been wanting to test let's see, I've been wanting to test the Discord stuff. So in the Discords, I have, oh, we have someone in here. Okay. So just to give you guys a rundown of the show before I get into it, basically on Sundays I try to stick to a schedule. The only thing I can really tell you guys for sure is that I can put out content. I don't know how great that content will be. I don't know when it will be because if I make it more and more strict, I think I might like kind of give up. It's kind of how I am with like diets. If it's too strict, I just kind of fall off the train. But if I give myself some flexibility, I tend to last longer. So yeah, Sundays. This is where we do like the group chats. I don't know what we're gonna talk about. I don't know. I find myself that I tend to really like the drama going on. Like that seems. I mean, you can only talk about like ethno states and why porn is bad so many times, right? And so it's like the drama stuff is at least new. Drama is drama, but at least it's always new drama, right? I don't know. Maybe in a past life I was one of those women where I just would sit around and watch soap operas all day. I don't know. But I find it pretty interesting. I'll try not to dive into the drama all that much, even though a lot of you guys tell me not to get into the drama, but then at the same time, you guys are pressing one to meet for me to react, which is what this is right here. You guys want me to react to the latest drama. This is my channel. I do what I want here, but at the same time, I am taking advice from you guys. I'm not going to let my ego get so above me that I think I'm like greater than I actually am. So I guess from here, I'm just going to let's test out the Discord stuff. I haven't used it before. I would very much like to use this instead of Google Hangouts though, because we get the cool notifications. We have a lot of stuff going on. Google Hangouts, I don't really know how to use it all that well yet. So let's see. Let's see. All right, let me unmute myself and then tell me guys if it starts echoing because technically I have like a mic connected to two things. So if it's echoey, I might have to bail on this idea possibly. So let's see. All right. So Dr. Strangelove is in here. Is there an echo, everybody?
I don't hear an echo.
You don't hear an echo, and I can hear you. This is awesome. Okay, because then I have the show mixed in with bringing people in. I kept thinking I had to do a Google Hangouts thing, so this is cool. No echo. Okay, this is cool. I kept thinking there'd be an echo, and I wouldn't really know what to do, but it worked out. So, anything you want to talk about today, Doctor Strangelove? I hear.
Not specific. No.
Go ahead.
I can think about it for a second.
If you want, I know there's a lot of drama with you and everyone else in the Discord over some sort of dinosaur theory. I don't know, like all I hear is the typical banter of such a theory, but I haven't actually heard the theory itself. In case you want to, put it out there.
It's not so much as I share pictures of ancient carvings and fossils that are discovered where it's just human footprints right next to dinosaur footprints in the same strata. So it's not exactly my theory, it's just evidence presented.
Right, right. I did see you were posting pictures of like some sort of pottery with dinosaur pictures on
Those were stones from South America called the Ica stones. And there's like tens of thousands of these stones. And they've all got pictures of different things like open heart surgery and dinosaurs being ridden by humans and dinosaurs eating humans and shit like that. It's very interesting.
it. Yeah, I mean, uh, like I can't really give an opinion since I don't really know much, but I do think it is definitely possible today. I mean, we could, you could clone dinosaurs if you find enough DNA, and then, maybe we can domesticate them and, ride them and maybe even make dinosaur meat. Who knows? That sounds pretty tasty to me.
Well, they've actually discovered that they're finding a lot of. My push to talk is messing up on me. But
Oh,
they
okay.
find a lot of dinosaur DNA within the deepest areas of these bones that they find, and they're actually working on completing the full genome of a tyrannosaur, I think.
Oh, and what would be like the end goal to that? If
Oh,
they,
who knows, man? They do all kinds of stuff with DNA. I mean, in China, they grow penises on the heads of pigs and stuff. So whatever they want to do with it, I guess.
I think that's just people just messing around with things, and I think once they figure it out, I'm not really sure because if I don't know like your thoughts on cloning, but if you clone something, doesn't the DNA like every single time you clone it get more and more damaged?
I don't really know enough about it to claim either way, but I would assume that there would be some degradation of the DNA strand each time you do that. But they could probably find DNA from multiple animals and then breed them or something,
Hmm.
or or even fill in spaces in the DNA with modern reptiles or something. Who knows?
Yeah, because don't we already have reptilian brains, or at least a part?
Yeah, there is a section of the brain underneath the larger mammalian brain, which is the reptile brain, and that handles flight or flight response or fight or flight responses and your basic, animal instincts. But the mammalian brain handles all our higher functions.
Right, right. Hmm. So the whole like all the dinosaur talk I've heard about it and it's caused a lot of drama. It's essentially you have found evidence from some ancient people that had pictures of dinosaurs or dinosaur, as you said, prints and next to human prints, and
Yeah,
and you're just
the
asking questions. Thank you,
the
Chris,
Siege by Mel
1388.
Gibson.
I show the evidence and they make fun of me for showing the evidence. So it's not really drama in the sense that I'm causing any drama. It's just that I guess they think it's funny that I would show them evidence and expect them to draw conclusions based on the evidence. But
Yeah, there's a lot of
whatever.
drama in there.
I think it's entertaining, and they can laugh all they want, but that doesn't negate the evidence.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what a lot of people are doing, right? You're just everyone sees stuff and then you question it, and then instead of people just saying why that's right or wrong, they just kind of like shit on you, and then you're just like, well, isn't this weird that no one's saying why I'm wrong or right? They're just shitting on me. Therefore, there's a have a good argument just based off the behaviors put towards me that I could be right.
If you're gonna shit on me and I deserve it, that's one thing. But if I'm just showing you something and it's thousands of years old and you're like, oh no, that's fake, But then I show you something else that's also thousands of years old and can't be faked because it's on the side of a temple on, Cambodian temples and Sumerian cylinder seals and shit like that. Like, you can only poo-poo so much evidence before you just look stupid yourself, right?
Right. Is there anything more about the dinosaur stuff? Is it just a little bit of evidence you've seen, or is there more to it?
Well, I mean, if you look at the prints from the Glen Rose, Texas fossils that they discovered underneath the bedrock, you'll notice that those human footprints are quite large, indicating that they would be very gigantic humans. And that would tie into why the dinosaurs were so big and they don't survive anymore in our current quote unquote gravitational strength. At
Uh,
that time, the Earth's gravity, quote unquote, wasn't nearly as strong as it is now because the Earth wasn't in orbit around the sun, which has a much more intense electric field than our parent star, which is Saturn. So
instead of
humans worshipped Saturn. Go ahead.
dinosaurs, is there a chance that it could have been just like some giant trannies or something like that?
Hey, I mean, if Jews were back then brainwashing people to be trannies and having foot surgery or something, sure, it's possible.
Oh, also, what's your thoughts on giants? Because I've heard that idea get thrown around where they say, giants are real and they show all these skeletons and just kind of the same kind of thing. They say giants were real, and I don't know what happened to them, but they're saying that they're also like, I think, part of the Bible, and just some stuff like that.
I don't adhere to the Bible. I adhere to stories recorded by all ancient peoples where they describe much different environmental circumstances of the earth. And those circumstances, as I just previously said, were the result of being in orbit around Saturn because they claim that Saturn is our parent star. And our weather conditions were much more favorable. The light conditions were pretty much ubiquitous around the entire planet because before Saturn got captured by this star and pulled into its current orbit, Earth pulled away from it, Saturn had a plasma sheath around it. And that plasma sheath bounced light back from Saturn onto the planet, and that illuminated the planet entirely at all times. But it wasn't a bright light, it was more like a purple golden dawn type lighting situation. And that's why it's called the purple dawn of creation in the ancient myths, followed by the golden age, which was after the plasma sheath dissipated after coming into contact with the sun's heliosphere. And that actually caused Saturn to flare and cause cataclysms, which initiated some extinctions. And once the Earth was pulled in to the inner solar system, our gravitational field, quote unquote, our electromagnetic field intensified, and that caused a greater pull towards the Earth, which no longer sustained such large animals. And once you've got humans adapting to this new electromagnetic environment, they start getting smaller and smaller. That's why our tallest guys are around 7 feet, unless they have acromegaly, where they get much bigger. But they have all kinds of health issues and die young. So
Yeah, I guess I always took it as these giant dinosaurs, they were really big and that helped them with, eating things that were smaller than them. But once their environment was affected by, the asteroid and the ice age and things like that, having a much smaller body was basically, what was like the food chain changed from being the biggest and strongest to now being the smallest. So I kind of thought that everyone was just kind of adapting to the new environment, and and also being so big, you have to eat a lot. So I just thought it was more so the environment that made everyone have to get smaller. But yeah,
Well, part of it, the environment was much more agreeable to life. There was much more plants, much larger plants, bugs with, or right, dragonflies with 4 foot wingspans, beavers that were 8 feet tall and 15 feet long and shit. The animals were very big, and it was because of the very uh, prosperous environment that they inhabited due to being in orbit around Saturn, because Saturn's inner or inside that plasma sheath, it's like a cosmic womb, and it prevents
are you
it
still here?
prevented a lot
Oh,
of instability when we were still inside that plasma sheath of Saturn. So
hmm.
them being that big was very easy because life was more plentiful.
Okay, yeah. Since you brought up like just the electromagnetic spectrum and things like that, how does that relay into I think it was the water electrical um, thing you were telling me about?
The water electrical thing.
I thought you
I
sent
don't.
me a video on something to do with like water. Thank you,
Ebola
Chris1388.
killed the dinosaurs for Mason.
That's a good point. Was it Ebola or and who was Mason? I think those are the real
No,
questions.
no, it was. I got. I didn't hear the super chat, so I
Um,
can't comment on it.
oh, okay. Okay, that's good to know that only I can hear it. Basically, he said Ebola killed the dinosaurs for Mason.
No, it wasn't Ebola. It was the increase in the intensity of the electromagnetic field of the Earth, which y'all know as the gravitational field, and that prevented their large bodies from being sustained. The Thunderbolts project has 2 videos out on this, and it's very enlightening to go look at the evidence they provide for you know the new environment being the result of the new electromagnetic environment being the result of mass die-offs of dinosaurs.
So I think like the only dinosaurs that are left would be, was it like crocodiles or I forget the difference between crocodiles and alligators, but aren't they considered like technically dinosaurs?
Well, they lived at the same time, but technically, like all lizards are related, and maybe they're all dinosaurs. And some people think some of the dinosaurs, like I think it was Pteropteryx, had feathers. So maybe birds are descendants of dinosaurs and they just got really small. Who knows?
Yeah, I know when I hit the gym, I feel like a dinosaur. That's for sure. Some people, hey, just so you guys know, if any of you guys want to join the chat, just join the White Elephants Discord and then jump in if you guys want to give your take on the things we're talking about. Um, People are saying Ebola is a man-made virus. What are your thoughts on that?
I think Ebola isn't a man-made virus. I think it was a naturally occurring virus that they may have engineered to be stronger than it normally was. Just like the HIV virus, there's a lot of theories going around that they've made that a much stronger virus than it normally would. And there's even some data suggest that Northern Europeans are it's almost impossible for them to contract HIV, like or they can carry it, but it'll never affect them because of their genetic structure. It's interesting.
Oh, that's yeah. I've heard some things even about like HIV, where some people say as long as you have a strong immune system and you get in your nutrients, which I guess most people don't, they're very deficient. They think that your immune system would be able to fight off these things. that might be some holistic person saying that, but I've heard that before.
No wonder it kills so many Africans.
Yeah, I mean, they're very deficient over there. I'm going to rename the title of the stream, if that's okay, Talking Dinosaurs. I feel like a lot of people would jump in if I name it that. What do you think?
Say, discussing giants and dinosaurs.
Oh, okay. So we better get back into the giant stuff. Do you have anything more to say about giants?
There is a lot of evidence to suggest that white people are the first race, and we were giants back in the purple dawn of creation, up until like maybe midway through the golden age, and they find very large mummies in China of red-haired, white-skinned people. In much of Europe, they find giant bones of humans in caves. All of the ancient megalithic structures, like what was it called? Baalbek, the Bosnian pyramids in Egypt in Bosnian pyramids that are larger than the ones in Egypt they actually look like mountains because they're covered with dirt and trees now, likely due to cataclysmic events which covered them over because electromagnetic storms lift debris and dirt and rocks from the surface and carry it. So, there's a lot of
became
evidence
bug chasers and all died from
all over
AIDS.
the globe
There was a covert dinosaur
that they were
genocide
giants
that was pushed by J.
and that they were
Mason.
actually white humans, European or Europoids. I think some people call them European.
Who is that?
Okay.
They just left. Who was that? Did you see?
That was a nice guy.
What is it? He typically does that. Someone donated, and it just kind of flies by really quick on here. So Chris 1388, he donated $4.99. Thank you. He says dinosaurs became bug chasers and all died from AIDS. There was a covert dinosaur genocide that was pushed by J. Mason. What do you think about that?
I have no idea who Jay Mason is.
Oh, okay. I feel like a lot of people are going to be Google searching that name after the stream is over, or while it's still going, probably. Do you want to look them up?
Me? No, I don't give two shits.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but I mean, from that theory, you'd have to think that dinosaurs were gay, and I don't think can animals be gay? I think they can act gay, but they're not actually gay, right?
I think someone was watching a video where they were talking about a test they did with mice, and they gave these mice, unlimited food and resources within a contained environment. Once they reached a certain population level, there would be these male mice who would just do nothing but groom themselves and display homosexual traits. And once the population level dipped, they wouldn't regain their heterosexual traits.
Egypt and read.
Still be like effeminate nerds. Gay mice. I mean, there is evidence to suggest that animals can't be gay.
Oh, so you think like a first world country kind of environment can lead people into doing degenerate things, kind of like what happened with like ancient Greece, where people were just kind of doing it with whomever?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also nature telling us who shouldn't breed. Like gays are usually the least intelligent, and not all, but usually from what I've seen, they're not quite the cream of the crop, and it's probably nature telling us they shouldn't reproduce at all.
Yeah, I always say when it comes down to that kind of stuff, I say, look, to degenerate things, there's usually consequences. to doing too much weed, too much alcohol, these things, there are obvious consequences, even to homosexuality. It leads to STDs, it leads to AIDS, and all these things. And really, the only thing I hear is that people are trying to cure these things, the symptoms of these lifestyles, instead of actually talking about the lifestyles themselves, it seems like. But we have a super chat done by No Lies Matter for $5. Thank you. He says, look up Graham Hancock to learn about ancient civilizations that predate Egypt and read Siege Nerds.
I've watched a lot of Graham Hancock stuff, and he's into the like aliens gave humans their leg up thing. I don't subscribe to this theory. I think it takes away from the human achievements that we achieve. It's like removing our heritage and ascribing it to aliens instead of contributing, or instead of us building our own societies. And I don't like the theory, and there's no real evidence for it, if you ask me.
Oh, you mean like the ancient astronaut theories?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm thinking of the right guy. I don't agree with him. He's like David Wilcock almost.
Yeah, I just
annoying.
When I look at those theories, I kind of see basically it's like colonization, but on like a larger scale, and there is some interesting stuff, kind of like what you brought up, where there's a lot of ancient civilizations, and they're all talking about, they all have these same sort of things. Like they all have gods that are different, have different names and everything, look different, but they all have like the same like of abilities, and they have the same sort of catastrophes that happen in their civilization and things like that are just
exactly.
Yeah, so
that all ties back into my electric universe model, where the South Americans said that their gods were white-skinned, blue-eyed beings that came from across the ocean and gave them civilization. You've got the Indians, where their elite classes are still white to this day, and they set up a caste system to prevent race mixing and dilution of their white genes, so that the rulers would always have their set genetic code. And there's a lot of evidence to suggest that that was set up by ancient giant white people who went there and gave them civilization as well. And the Chinese, their creation myth is Huangdi, the first emperor of China, came in on his flying dragon and gave them civilization. So I mean,
yeah, and I know in like the Hindu beliefs, they literally have like blue people with multiple arms that came down in golden sky chariots and things like that. And to me, I'm like, that sounds like a UFO right there. That sounds like a spaceship.
Well, the way I interpret that is our ancient Aryan ancestors had high technology. They were capable of flight. They were capable of, charting the earth. And the few that survived the great cataclysms re-explored the earth after the waters rose, because there was, this flood. There's a lot of evidence for this flood, and the sea levels have risen quite a lot because there are so many around the coasts of all continents. You find ancient ruins underwater, and they're tens of thousands of years old. So I think we used to live a lot further out than we do now, because the seas are a lot lower, and that flood caused by celestial events pretty much ruined everything for us, basically.
Yeah, and when you bring up ruins underneath the water, that makes me immediately think of the idea of Atlantis. What's your thoughts on that?
What about the Walker?
Dwarka is also a city underwater.
Yeah.
See, that ties in very well to ancient civilizations being washed out because of events that are described as celestial events. They may have had, some high technology, but they were very superstitious at the same time, and they worshiped the planets as gods, and they worshiped the stars. So these planets, like Saturn, Venus, and Mars, they would have uh, shifts in their orbits, and they would get closer to the Earth, and there would be electrical discharges between them. which would account for the gods having weapons of lightning and stone being hurled from the heavens and fire being cast upon the land and shit. So I think if it's not aliens, it's just celestial events they didn't quite understand, and due to their superstitions, interpreted as beings doing it instead of planetary interactions.
Yeah, and we have a bunch of other people in the chat. We have No Lives Matter, what's up? And we have Victor. Do you guys have any takes on any of this, any of the things we talked about?
Hey, I'd just like to issue a correction about Graham Hancock. He is not a proponent of ancient aliens. His only suggestion is that there was an ancient seafaring race that could have been the basis for the legend of Atlantis, and it was flooded out during roughly 12,000 years ago. There are many cities of this that have been mentioned, like Tiwanaku, Pumapunku even, Tiwanaku, Baalbek, and the ruins of Göbekli Tepe. All of those suggest that humanity, civilization, is a lot older than.
I'm pretty familiar.
Yeah. And another thing, what they talk about is all these Bronze Age and pre-Bronze Age civilizations all have one thing in common. They all have a universal flood myth of a past golden age that went into decline. There was a great flood, and they had to restart the civilization all over again. That goes back to Egypt. That goes back to
Sumeria.
Yeah, Sumeria. That goes back.
Even the Abos have flood myths.
Yeah, that goes back to the Harappan civilization, the Indus Valley civilization.
Yep, Harappa.
Yeah, Harappa.
Exactly, and those floods are caused by celestial events. And in the electric universe theory, we have a model called star water, and that's basically
Very interesting.
more we had previously.
Your mic went out. Can you describe your theory again?
Sorry, in the electric universe model, we have the star water hypothesis, and that's when certain celestial events happen, water is created in the atmosphere and not just taken up from the surface. And that additional water from these celestial events caused the flood.
Wouldn't it make more sense that it would be possibly frozen, like in the north and the south and southern hemispheres?
No, it wouldn't, because all of the frozen water on the planet can't account for the amount of sea level rise that we observe. Like, it comes up miles and miles.
At least 400-meter sea level sinking, yeah.
And find ancient ruins under water.
Oh,
this is a lot of ice we're talking about.
So the theory is basically new water is created in the atmosphere, and there was too much, and that led to a flood.
Yes.
And what's creating the water again?
Electrochemical reactions and new material being injected into the Earth's ecosystem. I can link something about it in the chat. I'm not extremely versed on that specific issue. I just did a quick overview of it, and it was rather compelling, because you can create water using electricity and hydrogen and oxygen, so it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, to anyone that thinks I'm laughing, I'm not laughing. It's just I'm looking at the chat and they keep saying retarded shit. That's making me kind of laugh.
They always say retarded shit. Yeah. I just kind of sit there and laugh at them too.
Yeah, it's just funny stuff. Yeah, that sounds interesting. I like hearing anything that's, that you don't hear at school. Any different theories about stuff. Here, Hoppa Chan.
I think it's kind of interesting that that those city states in the Indus Valley, when before the supposedly there was a glacier that was feeding that river that was the basis for their civilization. They had a semi-indoor plumbing system set up for drainage, for at least for wastewater. Now that was going back pre-Bronze Age. We're talking 5,000 years ago. So they already had
Harappa's amazing.
Yeah, they always had the concept of indoor plumbing way back then.
Yeah, people seem to think that the ancients were retards, but they were just as smart as us.
Well, if not smarter, they were very superstitious, and it kind of held them back in some ways. You know, they were still evolving, still coming across new information. They didn't quite understand electromagnetism. I think there is some evidence to suggest that the pyramids are electric power plants due to the way the water flows underneath it in the subterranean aquifers, and that creates an electric charge which goes up through the bottom of the pyramid. And inside the pyramid there are certain types of stone that can ionize air and create or are ideal for creating a plasma environment. So I mean, but those pyramids aren't 6,000 years old. They're over 12,000 years old. And there's a lot of evidence to suggest that. I don't think the Egyptians as we knew them actually built the pyramids. I think they just moved into the ruins and like started carving their shit on it to make it look like they did it.
Oh, so you think that the blocks that are like that way, in tons, you think they were already there and they just carved it into the pyramid instead of like trying to move it from miles away or whatever?
Like if you look at the pyramids, the casing stones have all been removed, and that's not from like natural erosion and shit. That's these
That's
people.
Human. Like Cairo's nearby, they just took the stones and used it for rebuilding.
Yeah, if you look at Cairo, there are a lot of the ancient buildings in Cairo that have stones from the pyramid used. They're just carved down. So they just started demolishing shit for themselves.
Yeah.
But there's lots of interesting stuff about the pyramids too. With the Sphinx. Like if you, I'm sorry, I forgot it already.
Yeah, the water erosion on
the Sphinx erosion. Yes.
Casing stones suggests that
erosion from rainwater. Yeah, it's all on the top and running down, which you don't get from a wind. I wonder why.
And it suggested that the only time in history where there was enough water to cause that was 12,000 years and beyond ago. So yeah, that falls in line perfectly with.
If R.C. Maxwell read Siege, he would still only be R.C. Maxwell and not Siege. R.C. Maxwell's career is what killed the dinosaurs.
Did you guys hear that?
No.
Oh, okay. It was another donation from Chris1388. Thank you for your donation. And, well, I mean, it's not going to add to the conversation. It's just kind of funny. But he said, if R.C. Maxwell reads Siege, he would still only be R.C. Maxwell and not Siege. R.C. Maxwell's career is what killed the dinosaurs. I mean, there's a lot of things that contributed to killing the dinosaurs, but I don't think R.C. Maxwell was one of them. I mean, he's a part of killing Bake's career, but not killing the dinosaurs,
He's definitely no Thomas Sowell.
Yeah, that's for sure. Does everyone here? There was one person in the chat that said that the dinosaurs never existed. I think all of us in here can at least.
That Zeus.
Was that him? Oh, who's in here now?
I've had Christians tell me that dinosaur bones are just tricks put there by devil to make us question their faith.
That's kind of seriously, that's kind of a little low IQ there.
Well, some people.
Yeah, well, I don't agree with that, of course.
Well, yeah, some people like nowadays, considering like what's said, they'll probably say, oh, the Jews put the dinosaur bones there so that more Christians. But you're right, so.
It's the evil merchant, the time traveling merchant.
You think you know water? Drink again.
Thank you, Vornado, for the $2. This is pretty interesting. A lot of you guys like to, well, actually, you guys donate, but you don't add to the conversation, which is interesting. But thank you for your donations, guys.
With the Jews, my theory is that it's like a 6,000-year-old racial animosity. I think after the cataclysms, they were part of a Saturnian death cult, because if you look at their symbolism in their religion, it's all Saturnian in nature. The six-pointed star is actually a two-dimensional representation of a cube, and the black cube is a representation of Saturn, the black sun, because Saturn has a hexagonal storm on its north pole, I think. And so they were part of this Saturnian death cult, and our ancestors didn't quite take too kindly to this murderous, child-raping death cult. So they expelled them from their lands. And ever since then, the Jews have remembered this, and they keep this knowledge, and they had to survive by race mixing with these newly developed humans that popped up after the cataclysms, or were genetic devolutions from the high levels of cosmic radiation that were then able to pass through the Earth's atmosphere due to the loss of our strong electromagnetic field, which prevented them from hitting us. And I think that's why they push race mixing on us, because they feel like, they were wronged in their expulsion and subsequent having to race mix to survive, and they want to make us race mix to bring us down to their level. I don't know.
What's your guys' thoughts too on Homo sapiens and Neanderthals mixing?
Kind of freaky.
Yeah, some people.
It would explain how ugly my dad is.
Oh, he's more Neanderthal.
The admixture of Neanderthals is no more than like 10% in Northern Europeans, and Africans have no Neanderthal DNA. So, I mean, if at one point, we obviously did breed with them, but it wasn't on a massive scale, and they were kind of already like a dying species anyways, because we were competing with them for food and land and whatnot. And what probably happened is we took some of their females and raped their females or something.
Oh, so you think it was like we got into like tribal wars with them, and usually women and materials and just people in general, when you beat them in a war, you get whatever they have, right? You're like, all right, well, you are either a slave now or you're dead, right? And then your women becomes our women now, and whatever stuff you have becomes our stuff, like your money, your inventions, whatever have you, becomes our stuff. So you think it was the mixing came from just spoils of war?
Yeah, it's not a large enough percentage of DNA for it to be a wholesale race mixing.
Yeah, because I've heard like whatever mixing there was, it's like if you find today, it's only like a few percentage points. Some people say like if you look into some super strict DNA tests that are like way more strict than Ancestry and 23 and me, and they can give you how much Neanderthal DNA you have. And I guess, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing, the higher Neanderthal DNA you have?
The Neanderthals weren't stupid. They actually had larger brains than modern humans, and they are credited with the invention of glue and pigments and the use of shells as money.
They didn't sniff the glue,
like
though, did they?
No, I don't think so.
Very interesting.
Oh, also, thank you to Chris1388. He donated again, and he said water is not real.
Mm-hmm.
Show me curved, motherfucker.
You're not.
But the Earth. They get back to water's not real. The Earth is round. I'm not a flat earther here.
It's always funny when people say, "Show me curved water." It's like I show them a picture of a water droplet. It's got the curve on it, or show them a wave, because waves have curves in them. They're just like,
Okay, so are we talking flat Earth stuff now?
Nope.
No.
Oh, okay, because curved water, right? Or
yeah, I just made a joke.
Oh, okay.
Flat earthers are the most cringiest people of the cringe of the internet. Cringy man. They are the bug man's bug men.
I have another joke where I talk about hanging all of our traitors high enough for all the flat earthers to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, what's your guys's? So what's like what are some arguments you've heard from flat earthers that you guys can just like debunk on the spot? Because when it comes to this subject, I'm just going to go with the mainstream. Earth is circular, and but at the same time, I'm not the kind of person where I could sit here and just debunk every single thing they do. So are there any points that you guys can just like, oh, they always say this, and here's why they're wrong?
Yeah, it's very simple. My sister a long time ago, I think it has to go back maybe 20 years ago, got a birthday present of a nice telescope. And the funny thing about this telescope is when I looked into the telescope and I looked at other terrestrial bodies, they were all round. So if everything in the sky and the universe is of a round, spherical shape, why would the Earth be flat?
Oh, okay. So you're saying if the moon and Mars, so even flat earthers will say that the sun and everything else is circular because you can visually see it.
Yeah.
Therefore, if everything is this way, Earth should be as well.
Yes, I don't know how this is. I didn't know how this even got into the level of internet debate. I thought this was like a meme, or I was getting trolled when I was talking to some of these flat earthers, and they really believed it. And I kind of think the fact that they believe so much, I'm kind of I'll like I gotta it's like I can't even believe it. The stupidity from the flat Earth community is I can't even grasp around it.
I would very much like to do a stream or something, or someone has to do it where they say, I don't know, like they try to actually do a vlog and they go around the world, or they go to, maybe they go really high up and then they're able to look straight down with their camera and they're able to show that, hey, I think people have already done that, right? Like astronauts have gone up, then they take a picture, and do flat earthers just say it's photoshopped or something?
They say it's a fisheye lens.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And does that mean if you take a picture from somewhere that it distorts the picture, basically?
And another thing about some of these flat earthers is that another conspiracy theory that gets wound up in it when it talks about some of these shuttle launches and stuff that we've done exploring in outer space. They always like to throw the whole, well, some of these were staged in a movie theater. I was like, no, you're getting too weird on me, my man. They like to wove in the whole. We didn't go land on the moon. It was done in a Stanley Kubrick sound studio up there at Pinewood Studios in England. I said, no, man, you overstretch yourself, my man. I mean, if I could sit down and look in a telescope that my parents got my older sister for her birthday 20 years ago, I could look up there and look at the sky and go, look at the amount of celestial bodies that are of spherical origin. They're either round or they're at least elliptical. I said, if you just look at it by trial and error and just by coincidence, I'm assuming that we are round too. And there's ways you could check that too by checking the length of shadows on a beach. You ever try that before?
I've never done it.
Yeah, go to a beach, and what you're going to do is stick a broom handle in the ground, and then walk down the beach. I'll say about maybe 5 miles, and maybe even better probably be 10 miles or 11. 11 because that's how far as you can see with your eyes around the Earth, because that's the actual curvature. Every 11 miles is you hit the spot where you can't see. You're going to start seeing the curvature of the Earth. So every 11 miles, you're going to stick a broom handle on the ground. And then at the same time of day, you're going to mark the shadow or the length of the shadow. And you're going to notice from going from north to south, you're going to see there's a variation within the shadows. Those difference in geometry of the hypotenuse and the A and the B, you're going to determine the actual curvature of the Earth.
There's actually a proven thing that cold air will curve light downwards, so you could, in cold weather, be further away from an object and still see it over the curvature of the Earth because of the deflection of light and cold air.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so
that's actually kind of false there. The reason being is you're dealing with difference. Cold air, you're dealing with that has the same effect of hot air. You're dealing with variations of density through air. It's the actual density of whatever mass of gas you're going.
Air is different density than hot air.
Yeah, it's the same effect, but it's slightly the same, but not as exaggerated. It's the same thing when you shine light. When you stand in front of a pond or a lake or something, and you put your hand into the water, you notice there's a difference in the light reflection of your hand. It's the same effect, but only ultra exaggerated because you're going for something because there's different densities between air and the water.
Yeah, I get all
that. And the curvature of the different density.
Hey guys, I'll be right back. I drink a lot of water, but keep it going. Yeah.
Yeah, the difference between density, it's almost minimal. It's not as exaggerated as may think.
Like I said, I didn't say it was a steep curve like the refraction in water. I just said it's a slight curve, so you can see things slightly further away in cold temperatures.
Yeah, I hate those flat earthers. They're so.
Yeah, they're gonna get gassed. They're low IQ and they don't need to breathe.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
It's always the lowest quality character people I've noticed. Like some white people will fall for it just because they think that everything is a lie because they find out that Jews are lying to us about everything. They're like, oh well, the Earth must be flat too.
Yeah.
But
the whole flat Earth meme is, man. Whenever I talk about a flat Earth, I'm like, dude, obviously you're memeing. But the fact that you're trying to meme that crap on me, I go, I'm like, I haven't, like, it only works on people who smell large quantities of magic markers.
The Greeks proved the Earth was round with geometry like thousands of years ago. So
yeah, they did.
Yeah, another thing too, don't flat earthers basically deny that gravity is real?
Exactly.
No, they don't deny that gravity is real. They just say that it works in only one direction, which is down. They can't conceive of it pulling towards the center of a spherical body.
So let's say I grab a football and I throw it to you and you're like 20 yards away. So they're saying that gravity only goes down. So if I throw something in that direction, it doesn't go straight down. Is their explanation for that?
They're retarded? I don't know.
I always ask them, when it comes to these flat earthers, I always ask them, did you live in an old house? And they say, why do you want to know that? I say, did you ever eat pink chips when you were a kid?
Paint chips are sweet, I hear. They're like tasty and shit.
Well, if you had a house that was painted, it had old paint in it before the 1960s, that paint probably had lead in it.
Oh,
I've
worked
neurotoxin.
in houses where we had to do lead removal, and you have to like wear a suit and a mask, and you have to have a certified guy come and inspect the place.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's similar to some people say the reason why Rome fell was because they had lead pipes. Therefore, everyone was all like contaminated and retarded or something along those
that was
lines.
definitely part of it. It was also an economic question. They were doing a lot of trading with triple parentheses Babylon, and the Babylonians, triple parentheses, would have an exchange rate on the goods. Like you could only buy goods, or you would have to trade your Roman silver coins for their currency, and they would give you a shitty exchange rate. So it was depleting Rome of its silver supply over a long period of time, and that caused the crash of their economy. They couldn't pay their armies anymore. They couldn't pay the barbarians to protect them and whatnot. So they just kind of petered out because they had this multicultural thing going on, and 75% of their population in Rome was slaves, and they just couldn't sustain that model. They were idiots. They fell for the Jewish propaganda first. I blame Rome.
So basically there was like a Federal Reserve even in Roman times?
Well, it was a Jewish reserve.
Well,
They've always been usurers, man. It's how they've maintained power. Like I got book.
This is news to me. I got to do research on this.
I have this book. It's from the Order of the Eastern Star, which is the female Masons, and in it they talk about Esther and how she was married to the king of Babylon, and she went to him. She was like, "Oh, well, he was gonna massacre the Jews. He was gonna show with them because they were fucking up." And she runs to the king, and he's like, and she goes, "No, please, they're not bad people. Don't kill my peoples." And it praises this Jewish woman in this Masonic book for women, talking about how smart she was and how beautiful she was and how she saved the Jewish people and Jews and Christians should get along. So it's really fucked brainwashing shit. I should show it to y'all sometime, but I don't have it with me. It's in another state right now. I have to go back and get it and show you. It's got a satanic star on the front of it and everything.
Interesting. I gotta check the sources on that.
Do you guys have
the book I have was printed in 1928? So,
do you have any take on like the North Star? Since we're talking about stars, I hear about that in different communities from time to time.
Yeah.
The North Star was originally Saturn, and after the loss of the plasma sheath, it became the current North Star, and it was just a way to navigate. The position of Saturn in our sky, from what we could see, it maintained its central position, and the Earth was in polar alignment with Mars and Venus, and you could see Mars and Venus directly. Well, Mars was in front of Venus, and you could see that, and it was a polar alignment, so it looked like the heavens were turning around a central object, which was Saturn. And you have to watch Symbols of an Alien Sky, and you'll get the picture.
Because I think there are some groups that like worship the North Star. Have you ever heard anything like that?
Sounds like a bunch of pagan warpers.
After the Earth was pulled away from Saturn, these people were already planet star worshippers, and they just transferred their ancient, beliefs onto new celestial objects.
Right.
To add something to this, you know why some of the original sedimentary civilizations were all connected to the stars, whether it be ancient Sumeria, ancient India, Egypt, because all you have to do is look into your regular Farmer's Almanac by Benjamin Franklin and look up that everything has to do with crops, anything to do with planting has to do with the stars, because they use constellations as their time and as their watch. Everything was based off stars and the movement of the sun.
Exactly, and that's why you don't see any time-telling devices until after the cataclysms, because when we orbited Saturn, there was no way to tell time. And if you actually look at the symbolism of the Egyptians and Sumerians, they have the central sun on the pillar of the world pillar, they called it, or the world tree, and it symbolizes rotating in place, and it has a crescent on it, and that crescent on Saturn was the light of our new sun, the sun we currently orbit, being cast onto Saturn. And as Saturn rotated, as well as the Earth rotated, that crescent would move around it, and they would tell time by the way the crescent was positioned on Saturn.
So you're telling me that one time the Earth rotated around Saturn?
Yes.
I can't believe that.
Wait. So basically, in the past, we weren't rotating around the sun; we were rotating around Saturn,
along with Venus and Mars and their respective moons. You have to have a good understanding of the electric universe model to get it. You got to look up Wallace Thornhill. You got to watch Thunderbolts of the Gods, Symbols of an Alien Sky. And Wallace Thornhill has a presentation called the protostar Saturn, because Saturn isn't a gas giant. It's a sub-round dwarf star in dormant mode. If you were to move Saturn outside of the electrical influence of the sun, its plasma sheath would reignite, and it would actually be as large as or larger than the sun in its circumference.
Oh, okay. So basically, in the past, the Saturn was larger than it is now, and because of that, its gravity was greater, and therefore everyone else used to revolve around them until, for whatever reason, they got smaller, and then everyone else started revolving around the sun.
Well, so Saturn was outside of this solar system, and it got caught electrically by the sun. And when the plasma sheath of Saturn came into contact with the heliosphere of the sun, plasma sheath disrupted, went away, and we got pulled in further into this solar system. And we got pulled away from Saturn along with Venus, and we took up new orbits. And the Earth got lucky enough to be in this Goldilocks zone where we don't freeze to death and we don't burn up. If we hadn't landed where we are now, we'd be fucked.
Yeah, that sounds like have you ever heard of Nibiru?
Yeah, people, they're misrepresenting when they talk about Nibiru. They're misinterpreting the theories of the ancients and the stories of the ancients. Nibiru is basically a product of Zechariah Sitchin translating Sumerian tablets, and he was a Jew, so we can't trust what he says, right? And I think Nibiru is actually Venus or something like that, because Venus was shot out of Saturn at a certain point in time, and we witnessed this event, and it caused all kinds of problems for us. So, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, because I heard, like, during the 2012 stuff, I did a lot of research, and I thought something might happen. There were so many theories as to, some people saying the world was just going to implode. Some people were saying that there was going to be a change in consciousness. And just like a lot of stuff, Nibiru, there was like all these multiple theories. So I actually had a plan in case something were to happen. I stored water and food and things like that. I had a game plan of like a shelter close by that I was going to raid. Of course, nothing happened. I actually think it might have been a change in consciousness, considering that people on a wide scale are questioning like all forms of like everything, like mainstream, like the media. A lot of stuff people are questioning. They're talking about things that they're really not allowed to talk about. And I mean, that's my theory for 2012. I can believe it was like a consciousness change. But what's your guys' thoughts on 2012?
Well, I read when 2012 was happening, I actually did a lot of research into Mesoamerican cultures, and the whole that whole ending of the calendar thing. You know what the ending of the calendar thing was? It was just that the calendar ended. That was it. And that restarts again the new calendar. It was a total misrepresentation of what the calendar was.
End times theories and these worlds.
Yeah, the calendar was their the calendar was their modern use of the Farmer's Almanac. That's what it was.
So is it kind of like, let's say I had a diary of mine and it only goes so far, and some people like worshipped it and they're like, oh, once we get to the end, the last page, then that must mean like we're all gonna die or something. It's kind of how people.
Yeah, pretty much. The whole calendar tracks constellation alignments, times of the solstice. It was their modern day version of Farmer's Almanac that took place over thousands of years, and their actual calendar itself was built upon other calendars between the Aztecs, Maya, the Toltecs, whatever you want to call them, I can't remember, the Oxalans, whatever you call them. It goes back to the original guys. I can't remember what their name. It was, I forget, but yeah, it actually was a calendar that was of the Mesoamerica, and it was a Farmer's Almanac. They showed the floods, everything. But this whole end of the prophecy thing was built upon a false premise of after these guys. See, another thing, when they killed all the Mesoamerican tribes through illness, all the people who had the ability to interpret it correctly all died. So they were left with all the idiots who didn't even know their own calendar.
Yeah, that sounds like the Joe Rogan joke where he talks about like the pyramid theory, and he came up with this like kind of joke where basically all of the smart people that knew how to build it, they basically died because they got very technologically advanced and they decided to just have sex with sex robots. So their genes just ended right there, and then all the low IQ people just kept popping them out as they usually do, and then at one point, all the high IQ people were just dead because they didn't reproduce anymore, and all the low IQ people just claimed that, oh, we built all of this, and they just kind of started doing a bunch of stupid stuff. They started putting like dogs' heads on humans and say, oh, see, that's a god, and we'll claim that these people built this because they don't actually remember what happened. And it kind of makes me think of the whole like we was kings theory of if certain people got a hold of the history books and gained power, then they would just kind of like use their crayons to kind of draw history. And if all the people that actually understand things were to just die, I mean, that would be history at that point.
Well, when we're talking about the Aryan race, though, we're talking about a completely different.
And I remember the Olmecs.
Oh well, the Olmecs. I don't give a shit about them.
Yeah, they were the original founders of Mesoamerican civilization. They were the original ones who went from wandering tribes to actual legitimate civilization, and all the calendar from Aztecs to the Mayan calendar, all these other calendars all trace back to the original Olmec calendar. They were the first calendar.
The Olmecs have living descendants today, and they look exactly like the Olmec heads. But I don't think the Olmecs just came up with this stuff. They were one of the original tribes that were contacted by the Aryan race after the cataclysms and given civilization, as told by the Aztecs and the Mayans in their creation myths. Where was it going? And if you look at, apparently there was some Roman stuff found in North America in the Grand Canyon, I think I've heard.
Do you have sources on this information? This sounds way too theatrical to believe.
Well, I mean, it's their theories. The Aztecs themselves say their gods were blonde-haired, blue-eyed beings with white skin. So, I mean, I'm just going by what they say.
I gotta check these sources.
So to check that, you would have to look into, you were saying like Mayan and Sumerian, their religion.
Mm-hmm. The Sumerians specifically, their cylinder seals have depictions of them in front of much larger beings that they referred to as gods, and they look very European as compared to the smaller, much less human-looking Sumerians. They they look kind of like Mexicans almost in their depictions of themselves. And these gods are very tall, well-dressed beings.
So basically you're saying that most, like every civilization, they had their original gods, and their original gods look like them, because everyone basically thinks that the world revolves around them, and in a greater sense they're people, and therefore if there's a god it must look like them, because everyone thinks that they're the chosen people at the end of the day. And so therefore if there's a group well, if there's a group of people that are worshiping gods that don't look like them, it might be because they actually witnessed something, and that is why their gods don't look like them. Because for the most part, most people make gods that look just like them.
Yeah, I'm saying that these people had interactions with our ancestors, who were the remnants of the giant race that inhabited the earth before them. Like all of these other non-white races, they're new compared to us. If you look up morphic resonance, there's a guy, he falsely attributes, his theory to being practical within the Einsteinian theories, but it's not. His theory can only work within the electric universe model. And he talks about how there are fields or resonant frequencies that dictate how a life form will develop. And it uses electric currents to send out its basically form before the cells start to grow in that manner. And there's a lot of proof for that. We can observe this in embryos forming. It'll send out an electric field, and then the cells will grow in behind that electric field. So all of these new races are basically copies, but less intelligent copies of us. And they are the product of our resonant frequency already being present. So they just kind of developed in a similar form that we did. But due to the increased cosmic radiation, they weren't as advanced as we were.
Right, and let me address the chat, because some people, they jump in here and they're like, what's going on? One person said, this is basically conspiracy theories plus racism and stuff. And
yeah, this is getting some Alex Jones territory.
Look, all we're doing is I try to stay consistent, and I try to do like a Sunday stream where people come on and we just talk about stuff, whether that's conspiracy theories or race realism, JQ, whatever. We just talk about whatever. People come in here and we just chat just starts flowing. So if anyone wants to come in here and they rather us talk about something else, then jump. You got to join the Discord first, and then you got to join the chat, and then you could talk about whatever you want to talk about, or you can just super chat and then say something. And if there's once there's a moment for us to change topics, then we could answer whatever your question is.
These people, they use the word conspiracy theory, but they're the kind of people who won't believe anything the mainstream says. They will admit that rich people get together in rooms to talk about how they're going to dominate humanity, and they'll bring up Alex Jones. But the only thing Alex Jones is wrong on is he doesn't name Israel as the source of all these problems. So, I mean, it doesn't mean anything when you say conspiracy theory, because conspiracies are real. We know this to be a fact. People get together, two people in a room thinking of a plot together to do something is a conspiracy if they don't tell anyone. So it doesn't mean anything when you say conspiracy theory to me.
Yeah, like if someone were to say that I have a tinfoil hat on because I question what the mainstream says, even though, especially this is the day and age of fake news, we know that they distort information. It's mainstream to say fake news now, and yet people still go around and they conspiracy theory, a tinfoil hat on, and it's usually from the left who are throwing out fake news constantly. Even if it's little things, even if it's like. They'll say someone's a white supremacist when maybe they're actually just a white nationalist, or maybe they're actually just like a Trump supporter, or they'll change a couple things around, so they'll have a lot of truth in there, and then they'll muddy some of the waters with some untrue facts. And it is crazy how everyone says fake news. You could see it anywhere. You can go on video, you can play like a video game and someone's talking shit, and then someone will call that person fake news because maybe they lied about something. So this is like the age of fake news, and yet people are still going around using conspiracy theory as if it's some sort of hurtful word. When in actuality, if you use that, you're basically insinuating that you are a sheep and that you think everything that you're being shown is completely and utterly true. When we know there's been multiple lies. We know we got into the Middle East over a huge lie, weapons of mass destruction. We never found that. With Syria, there's all of these talks of chemical weapons and people being gassed, but then Mattis comes out and says for the last one they never found anything, and so we're supposed to believe it this time. You can go further back, and we could talk about like whether 9/11 was an organic thing or not, and there's just a lot of lies, and most of history is just kind of like a whole lot of propaganda and stories, and for people to go, oh, you actually question things, what a dummy. I'm like, how is that an insult to me? It seems more like an insult to you when they say that.
And to get to your point about fake news, now that there's a lot of fake news being spread around, that when there's legitimate information that's spread on the internet, look what just happened. The recent Twitter purge with even with you guys, the Red Elephants went through some of this. First they tweeted about the caravans, and it got retweeted by Ann Coulter. Tucker Carlson was talking about it. Then they try to do the whole nother hashtag blitz with the whole no war in Syria. Then all of a sudden, Trump's I believe it wasn't I gotta look it up. It wasn't the Huckabee girl saying it, but all of a sudden they made a press release saying, "Oh, there's been an active of 1,000 active new Russian trolls." And so even if you tweet about legitimate information, they can label you as a Russian troll and then get your account banned.
That's so funny because I know there was evidence showing that Hillary Clinton during the election cycle, she actually hired a group of people that would literally be trolls. So they would be trolls that would be supporting Hillary Clinton, and they were paid to go out there and I think she even paid for bots. So it's
it was David Black.
Yeah, so it's so crazy that basically they're just projecting. They say, oh, you guys are all just bots, and they'll throw a Russian because I think the reason why they do that is because if you look at what's going on in Russia, they're essentially white people that aren't cucked, and I think they don't like that. Like they're very pro-Christian. Basically, it's like topsy-turvy over there, where here the left controls everything, and then we're the ones being attacked. But in Russia, they're actually beating down Antifa and beating down the feminists, and all the propaganda is essentially on the right over there, and they're very pro. I believe they're Christians, or are they Christians or Catholics?
Eastern Orthodox. It's like the inverse. They are fighting to preserve their traditions, and we're destroying ours.
Yeah,
it's
so
like the complete opposite.
Yeah, so it's the opposite. And so if the left really does hate white people, and if they really did want to essentially genocide them, the only people, I mean, there's some other countries, you got the Polish, the Austrians, and some people around there that are kind of, they have their heads, they have a brain inside their cranium. But I think Russia, out of all of them, is the closest to, being able to protect their values and their people and things like that. So it'll only make sense for the powers that be to want to take out Russia. It's kind of like hitting, two birds with one stone sort of thing, right? And so you can, and so I think that's why they're like, oh, let's just go after them, because they're essentially everything is related to hating Europeans at the end of the day. And so it's like, oh, we can just get Europeans to be killing more Europeans, and I'll bring everything down. And essentially, having a bunch of, Christians killing other Christians. And it just kind of like, there's no way that the left would ever say, oh, well, we want to go to war with anywhere that isn't basically white. Like they want, America to be killing Russia. You don't really hear them talk about like, we want to go kill Chinese, or I don't even know what their stance on North Korea is. I think as long as the people aren't white, they essentially have like no real dialogue on the map. Like they don't want to get involved if they're non-white, but if it's a white place like Russia, then all of a sudden let's blow them up. They're evil. They're trying to take over our elections and all this. Even though it's so funny because remember they were laughing about they're making fun of us during the election cycle because we said that they might try to what was it? They might try to fix the election, right? And we were saying it's going to be what was it? We thought the left was just gonna, they were gonna just cheat, and so we were saying, oh, they're gonna cheat, and Obama came out, made a speech, said essentially it's impossible for any outside sources to cheat because of the way, everything is just so separated, and then CNN had an article. I say that like 5 reasons why it's impossible for any corrupt things changing the election, and then right after we win, and then they say, oh well, they just completely go back on that, and it really sucks that people on the right forgot about that. They don't just say, hey, look, we were saying we thought something sketchy might happen, and you made fun of us. Obama came out, gave a whole speech why that's impossible, and then now you guys are saying, oh, it's Russia, that's how you won, Russian bots, just that kind of thing.
Yeah, and the funny thing about it was to get back to the whole media blitz that Obama was going on. The whole reason why they started on that media blitz because it was Trump who originally ran his big mouth saying, "Oh, they might have illegal aliens voting in California and other states," and he put that whole election fraud. He put the whole election fraud meme out there. And they went on a 4-month media blitz to prove, oh no, look how secure our elections are. Then once he wins, he goes, oh, I guess maybe they're completely legitimate elections now. I guess there's no fraud at all. And they go, oh no, there's all this. Look how bad our elections are. I mean, they just did a 180.
Yeah, it's funny how they switched sides basically.
Yeah.
But there was a certain word that we were using that it just escapes me right now. It was just someone was going to cheat the election. We were saying they're going to cheat, and then the left's like, no, because they thought they were going to win. So they thought that we were going to have to sit here and argue why there was no cheating involved. And then when they got surprised, they let their egos just completely take over them and their brains. They just took their brain out and replaced it with ego. And so now, they're coming after us with all these hypocritical arguments, and even when we try to tell them it's hypocritical, it doesn't really matter because their egos are getting in the way of it. And so now we're sitting here having to actually argue these points when we shouldn't. We should just be sitting here laughing at them, saying it's ridiculous. Not only that, but like there's plenty of evidence to say that we actually have tried to mess with other countries' elections, which obviously like people just kind of look the other way on that one when Obama and Hillary.
Was it WikiLeaks that put out that audio of? I know it was somebody put that audio about Hillary Clinton had an interview back in like the 90s about how, oh yes, just we always try to fund both sides of a coin in some of these elections in third world countries. We try to pick a winner, and we try to. I'm like, she openly admitted that we subvert other democracies' elections.
Yeah, I would think that everyone does that. I think every single country, they not only they want their guy in charge, but I think, and then they also influence our country with their lobbyists and with their money. You look into like the McCain Foundation, and you look into who's giving them money. And I don't know how that's a thing that no one really questions. That how do the people that have been in politics for a long time, they must know this. How are they okay that we have foreign countries that are basically giving our representatives millions and millions of dollars and think that that's okay? Like, I feel like that should be like the number one thing that everyone's talking about all the time, like left and right. Like you have foreign outside forces that are basically bribing the people that are in charge of our country, and no one seems to.
It's only bad if it's Russia.
Yeah.
Right. If they're if it's a non-white place like Saudi Arabia, who probably does it the most, or as some people say, Israel.
Look how everyone celebrated the fact that they're allowed now. Whether women are allowed to drive or not, that's another story. I could say testament with my personal experience of driving in the passenger seat of a female driver. But we're not going to get into that. But look how the left celebrated how Saudi Arabia is now. I was saying Saudi Arabia is now going to become it's a step in them becoming a modern country now when they allowed women to drive, have licenses, driver's license, and drive. Yet this is the same country that allows public beheadings and stonings. I mean,
I think the main thing is that on the left, they believe in these principles that they have, but they're only like, because at the very top of like their little hierarchy system they have is basically at the very top, racism is like at the very top. So even though there's like, misogyny and sexism and all that stuff, like feminists are basically at the very bottom. And it's usually like white feminists are at the very bottom. And so like, even if they're questioning countries that are doing things that they stand against, the minute, like if you're like, oh, well, they're beating women, they don't allow women to leave the house, they don't allow them to drive, it's totally fine to beat them and just do all these things. And they're like, oh, we're against that. And then the minute you say, oh, okay, but those people are brown and you're white, therefore you're racist by speaking out against them. And then they're like, oh, okay, so we're not going to, we're white women, so we can't say anything because we don't want to be racist. Or they'll just say, oh, well, that's their culture, which is crazy because then it's kind of like, it's like, okay, well, if you can just play that's their culture, like I'm an individual then, and I can have my own personal culture. So if I want to like, beat my wife or whatever, I mean, that's my personal culture, and you're, inhibiting my culture, and therefore you're a bigot. But it comes down to the skin color is the top thing. Even if your behaviors go against their beliefs, if your skin color is, not white, then they are not allowed to criticize you.
It's crazy. It's weird. It goes back to that whole victim hierarchy thing where there's certain behaviors that we will, as a Western nation, we flat out do not tolerate. But the fact that you're of non-Western origin, it's like, okay, that's divert, that's cultural enrichment there. And we go, no, that's fucking crazy. There are a lot of strange practices that are just completely repugnant to our standard of living and to our Western values. But just because that was the norm over there doesn't mean it should be the norm over here.
Yeah, I think go ahead.
There was a man who just, if you look in the news, you can look up a Philadelphia Inquirer had a big article about a known Liberian warlord was just caught living in the Philadelphia region, and his son is serving a 30-year prison sentence for practicing a form of witch doctory where he used to kidnap people and cut their hearts out and eat them. So I mean, if you practice certain beliefs that allow you to be a Liberian warlord and pretty much be a cannibal, I don't think that's really conducive of our Western values.
And did you say that what country did they get into?
He was a Liberian. Well, the whole story was he was a man who claimed asylum in America. This goes back to around 2008. When immigration and the State Department did try to do research in this man claiming asylum, they eventually investigated that, okay, this man lied on his information they gave him was completely bogus. They brought him to trial to figure out who he was. He lied under oath of who he was. That's another federal crime. So, okay, this man is completely lying. We know he came from Liberia, but we don't know if he is of Liberian descent, if he is a Liberian. So they held him in America for 10 years. They couldn't deport him because they don't know who he is. They don't know where to deport him to. But then again, they can't really keep him here. So he's in kind of bureaucratic limbo. But he still lived here in America for 10 years. Then somehow the State Department got notified that this wanted fugitive in Liberia for being a war crime during the Second Civil War with James Comey. Somehow they connected his face to the man to the wanted warlord in Liberia. And he said, "Oh, we know this guy. He's living outside of Philadelphia." Not only that, him and a couple other guys are living here too. And they end up catching him and sending him. He's now being prosecuted to be sent to jail for war crimes. He's killed like 30 people.
And, you know, I think when it comes down to if we have people and they come from a country potentially that don't have databases on people, so there's no way to know if they really are their age, if they really are who they say they are. I think the default setting for that should be just send them to Mexico, I think. And that's not because there's more, you know, that there's millions of Mexican illegals here. I think, you know, Trump is fighting. He's fighting, you know, China on a tariff battle, right? There's like a trade war going on because he's like, well, look, there's no free market. They're doing all these things that go against free market, and the only way for us to, the only way for like the fair way to really fight back is to do the same thing. And usually, if you do the same thing to you know what they're doing, like if someone pulls a knife on you, you're not just going to fight them bare hand. You're like, all right, I'm going to pull out a knife too, and usually that'll kind of like end the situation, right? And that's what's kind of going on with China. But I think in this situation, if we have a country that is allowing their people to just run right into our country, basically invading it, trying to take our resources, whether that be tax dollars, you know, getting into college for free, that comes out of our tax dollars, taking advantage of us essentially, taking advantage of like our healthcare system where they just go right into the hospitals and they use the emergency rooms because you could just walk right in. You don't have to really pay for that. And then they never pay back, of course. When they're doing these things, I think we should just start sending people their way. I think, you know, you want to end the homelessness problem. Let's start rounding them up, send them right to Mexico because like we have illegals coming to this country, killing people and raping people, and we deport them, and then they come right back. You know, the piece of garbage that killed Kate Steinle, I think he was deported 9 times. So if you want to end them being okay with just sending people here, we need to start sending garbage their way too, because that's the only way to end a garbage fight. Is if they're throwing garbage at you, we got to throw garbage at them. Because if we don't throw it back, then we're just going to sit here and we got like banana peels and whatever all over ourselves, and then they're clean and we're looking like idiots. So I think if we grab people, if we don't know where they're from, send them to Mexico because they don't want it. You know, they have Haitians coming to their country and then they're just straight up deporting them. And not only that, but then some of these people are trying to do that anchor baby shit on Mexico. And unlike us, they're not idiots. And they have, I think, certain like legislation that basically says that even if you go to Mexico and you have a kid there, that doesn't mean shit. Your kid's not Mexican. Like it doesn't really matter. So they have a lot of laws in place that are very much protecting their people. It's just we're being such fools here, you know, because the left are just basically a bunch of fools, elitist fools, and they're just in the name of what's right and morals. Oh, it's so garbage, you know. That's how fools think, you know.
I saw a video of Mexican military beheading a 14-year-old Guatemalan kid for crossing the border illegally. Sorry, my tongue is frozen from eating ice cream.
Yeah, from what I've heard, and this is from, you know, I guess you could say right-wing South American type people, especially some Mexican friends of mine, and they straight up say, like, you know, me and my parents, like at least their parents, they say they don't like Guatemalans. Like they have a border up for a reason in Mexico. They don't like all these people living in these areas. They always dislike each other. There is no, white people hate any groups that are different from them, and then same thing. And to say that like South America is completely united and Africa is completely united, and that, you know, everyone, you're completely 100% friends with anyone that looks like you. I mean, I would say that homogenous societies are a more tight knit, but to say obviously it's not perfect. And same thing goes for like in Africa. I'm sure if we were to talk to people from Ghana, I'm sure they would have problems with, you know, people from Haiti. And then South America, you know, Guatemalans and Mexicans do not like each other. Just like, you know, it's like no one really likes their neighbor 100%. And they try to, you know, the left makes it with their media. They make it everyone believe that like everyone in South America, they're so united, and you know, just like everyone on the left, like the LGBT, blacks, you know, the brown people, Muslims are all united in this fight against their oppressors. But in actuality, all the people on that side, they absolutely do not like each other, and they're constantly fighting for dominance over each other, and it's something they keep quiet. But yes, the people in South America very much, they don't really like each other, and they have borders up, and they're trying to kick out, the other group and that kind of thing. But the media, they keep it nice and quiet because they want to make it seem like, everyone's united, and that and it's just white versus, anything non-white. That's the kind of push that they're pushing on a national scale.
Yeah.
The media doesn't say anything about it, but in California, Hispanics are basically ethnically cleansing the blacks in some areas. They're just killing them in mass. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, I actually saw, like, there was I saw some data or something. Basically, there was a lot of like black neighborhoods, like maybe 10 or 20 years ago. And ever since illegal immigration became like just like no one was doing anything. And so basically, all the people that were coming in here were just displacing all the black people and pushing them out of their neighborhoods. Yeah, I think it was like KTLA or something like that. And they interviewed this black guy, and he says, well, I don't have any problem with, like with Mexicans or whatever have you, but this was like a black community like a couple years ago, and it's just changed so quickly to where it's like you look around and it's just it just essentially looks like Mexico. And yeah, and like the point you brought up too, there have been a lot of gangs coming into this country, like MS-13 and stuff like that. And these people, there's an initiation process for them. So if someone wants to join their gangs, they got to basically go and kill some black people. And yeah, like you said, they're basically racially getting rid of black people. It's something you kind of hear about a little bit, but yeah, that is definitely going on. But it hurts their narrative, right? Because it will divide them. If you find out that, yeah, Mexicans or South Americans and the black community are in these battles, because I myself personally, I've lived in I grew up in a very Hispanic, black area. And yeah, there were times where you'd see a lot of Hispanics and they were just chasing out some black people and stuff like that. There was a lot of, I didn't really, you don't really look at race when you're young, but now I look back, I did see a lot of like racial conflicts, because I did live pretty close to the projects, which was mainly black, and my area was mainly Hispanic. And I didn't see like, major battles or anything like that, but I did see some definite like tribal warfares. Like I mean, this is a first world country, so a tribal war is, not really pulling out knives or guns or anything, but just like, just little things going on.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I encourage.
Yeah, different. I always tell people get like kids who become like race realist. I say it's not that you just discovered something. It's like it goes back to the same analogy of someone discovering the atom. No, you didn't discover the atom. The atom has always been there. It's just that you realized that atom was there. Different ethnic groups are always compete with resources. That's the way it's always been since the first since the first person or hominid left the trees in Africa. I mean, the different ethnic groups, whether it be socially, ethnically, anything. We are social animals that compete in groups. I mean, that's the way it is. We compete for resources. That's the way it is.
I think everyone knew about it because I've seen some like quotes from like the founders and things like that. But I think they thought it was such an absolute truth that they didn't need to actually make any like amendments or anything on immigration. I think they thought that it was just an absolute truth that everyone knew, and that they didn't like. I think everyone, they just thought it was, oh, like obviously we're all different and we're all good and worse are in different areas. And I think they just like, obviously America was originally all the immigration coming into the country was basically Europeans, and the founders, I saw some quotes where they were essentially saying that like it's just people are different. Like they were explorers and they go to different areas and they would just say, hey, look, the people living there and us, we're just very different, and we don't believe, I'm paraphrasing here, that we would get along in mass. And so they understood that, but I don't think they thought that they needed to, like make it put it in the Constitution or anything like that, or even come up with any data or anything like that on the differences of people. I think they just thought, look, it's visually known that we're all different, and then I think they thought that obviously everyone's gonna think this way throughout America, and and then with people, with propaganda and things getting more muddier, just like the concepts of things, because it is kind of difficult to talk about it. Like when I see a lot of like civic nationalists and alt-right people debating immigration, it is a little muddy. People say, oh, what is this? What is that? They kind of muddy the water, say these things. It starts getting a little it starts to get a little bit muddier and less clear, But I think, there are major differences, but I think we're only starting to talk about these things because we're starting to see problems. If everything was this perfect utopia, like the left says, I think we would be talking about less, race. It seems like the more everything gets diversified, the more we talk about race. It's like, like even in the 90s, like you'd see, I watched a movie like, what was it called? The Warriors. And in that movie, there was a lot of, quote unquote diversity. And yet there wasn't really major problems in the 90s. But it seems like the more people we bring from other areas that aren't from Europe like we used to, the more these race issues become very tribal and very angry and very hateful and very just bizarre in general. And I think, Buzzy.
David, why do you hate Mexicans?
Buzzy 101, $5. Thank you. I do not hate Mexicans. That's fake news.
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind. I don't hate Mexicans. I don't hate Latino people. I don't hate anybody. I won't mind getting myself a nice senorita myself. I mean, I like to have a Latin girlfriend, but it's just different. That we behave differently. Different, it's the way it is.
I think it's just the whole thing is we've been sold this idea of, America's a melting pot and diversity is our strength. And we're like, okay, we get it. Equality, we should be a country for everybody. All right. That's what we're kind of turning into. And we're saying, okay, we get it. And then we look around as time goes by and we say, we accumulate observations, and now we're starting to trade observations and we're starting to research them. You're seeing data come out, statistics and things on race mixing. And some people saying it's bad due to there's more like violence and divorce rates the further out from your race you go. And people are just having observations and they're researching data and they're throwing it out there and they're saying, look, we care about what's best for people in general and for a nation's health, and we have a different way we think we should go about it. We don't think this thing that we're being sold is actually a healthy thing. We're seeing more consequences and riots and tribal warfare on a political political level, and we're questioning the way this boat is basically sailing. Like we believe that if we keep going on this path that we're going to hit an iceberg. And basically they're saying we care about people, we don't want to hit an iceberg, and we're questioning things. And then everyone else here, instead of like looking at the argument and saying whether it's right or wrong and just having like a nice healthy conversation, because everyone is trying to do what's best for people and the nation and things like that. Instead of doing that, they just start to say, oh, you're a bigot, you're this, you're that. And it just leads into this whole, like, let's start throwing poo at each other kind of thing. When in actuality, we should be just sitting around having good conversations and sharing data with each other. And, because we're all trying to do what's best for everyone. There's no like hate or any of these things. We're just sharing information we've accumulated while being in this political spectrum is the way I see it. What do you guys think?
Yeah, we live in very interesting times.
Well, I just think that people are
sorry, I was responding to your upset woman. She's mad you asked me about the dinosaurs and stuff. So you stop talking about
yeah, I saw that in the chat. that she doesn't like the dinosaur talk. But I mean, if you want to give your opinion on that.
Yeah, dinosaurs. They were very big and very scary 65 million years ago. A lot of low IQ talk. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it low IQ when there's actual evidence for it. But that's your opinion.
If I could go back and live any time, I won't be back in the dinosaurs. I'll live back during right at the glacial maximum during the middle of the ice age. You had, and live in North America, you had bears that were the size of Volkswagen Beetles. You had direwolves, saber-toothed tigers. I mean, it'd been awesome.
You're robotic.
Here, keep the conversation going. I'll be right back again.
Yeah. So that's the one time I would have been. I would love to live in a cabin in the woods back in the. You're talking about me? I said if I had to go back in time to live in any time period, it will be during the last ice age.
I don't know. I wouldn't live then. It was a pretty shitty time.
Yeah, not even that bad.
I might go back to the purple dawn of creation.
Wow.
But it's unfortunate because time travel isn't possible. Time isn't a traversable or manipulatable medium. It's just a concept we created in order to meet each other in specific places and not, fuck everything up. So
yeah. Really cool. This is a really cool chill stream. It's very enjoyable.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. I'm just responding to people in chats. Zeus here, triple parentheses Zeus, is complaining about how his religion is so easily debunked. You can't handle it. It's like, stop it, leave me alone. Man, it's funny.
Yeah. Very interesting. Nice laid back stream.
Well, we could talk about dinosaurs and piss off Hapachan. That would be funny.
Oh God, yeah. I don't want her to throw me into the gas chamber.
It's not so bad in the gas chambers, dude.
Do we have a new person in here?
I do not want to get gassed by Hapachan.
Oh, is she in here? Oh, she's not in here. Okay. Yeah, I don't really know why she gets so upset over the idea of the dinosaur stuff. I took a history class not that long ago, and essentially the professor was like, "Look, most of history is just like a bunch of propaganda and a bunch of stories. So we don't really know what's true and what's false, really." And so coming from that kind of perspective, I'm like, and especially with all the false stuff going on. Imagine if Trump and Hillary were Roman, senators where they had their own personal armies and they actually fought to the death. If Trump had lost, the amount of garbage that the Hillary people would have been throwing out there on Trump and his supporters would have been astronomical. They would basically say that he was Nero and we were all these crazy nutbags kind of thing. And, possibly that's already happened throughout history with maybe even Caligula and Nero. I mean, there's some theories out there. So it's tough for me to take a strong stance on really anything, knowing that there's a lot of fake shit out there.
Yeah, you're a big Roman history guy. A dispute that Trump's going now between the Democrat and Republican parties, that would have more or less went into a civil war in the empire back in those days.
Yeah, I mean, most conflicts in the past, those would have been settled with violence is usually how it always goes. I mean, that's why it's so natural to us to, the minute we get into an argument, we just want to start throwing punches at the other person because it's very natural. And, we are the same people we were thousands of years ago. I mean, it takes millions of years for real evolution to occur. So we're not much different than any of these, ancient people we hear about. I mean, the only difference is we have more innovations in technology, but that is only because we ended slavery and we used a different concept. Because I've heard from Stefan Molyneux that the ancient Greeks actually knew about steam engines, but the reason why they never really went into them was because they're like, look, we have slavery. Like, why do we need to build machines when we could just have a slave do it for us? Like, they didn't see a reason to change their system. They didn't want to add a new ingredient in the mixture and get a bad result. So they said, let's just stick to what works. That's slavery and all of that. So, but obviously in the civilization we were in, people decided to try it out, and we get computers and cars and airplanes and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, there were some big brain guys back in the day, those Greeks.
Well,
they're saying Cantwell is doing really good on Andy Worski. Maybe you should play that live stream.
I don't want Cantwell. Cantwell, bad optics. Bad optics. I don't like that.
Do you guys want me to put that on here and we could just react to it?
Bad optics.
Who is he? Because when it comes to like super hardcore alt-right, knowing exactly all these hardcore people, I don't really. I just know
that. Good optics.
Yeah, I just know the people that put themselves out there. Like I know like Richard Spencer or like Nathan Domingo to a degree, but I don't know like the drama. Like I didn't even know who like Heimbach was until like everyone was talking about him all the time. So I heard that this Cantwell guy, wasn't he a part of like him and Paul Nealon were like in a group of like that were involved in like doxing. I don't even know who this Ricky Vaughn guy was, but they doxed him, and they have like a list I heard where they might dox people on the right essentially.
Yeah, there was some things getting thrown around about how
Paul Nealon doxed Ricky Vaughn because Ricky Vaughn was doing subversive shit. He was comparing the alt-right to and Islam, and he tried to sell all the data they collected on his white nationalist followers to Paul Nealon to help his campaign or something. So he seems pretty untrustworthy. He's a subversive character trying to divide us and demonize us. So I don't see that Paul Nealon did anything wrong. And Cantwell didn't dox him. He just defended Paul Nealon, basically. So.
Well, I'm against doxing just
information around.
Yeah, I'm against doxing just based on principle. I don't do that anymore. I think that's wrong just based on the principle of it.
Yeah, I mean that's the main thing I've heard is that people on the right were supposed to be principled.
Yeah,
we're supposed to be principled people, and everyone on our side, a lot of bad things happen to us all the time. We get punched out just for wearing a Trump hat, where we get doxxed and fired from our jobs and these things. And if we don't want to get doxxed, if we don't like being doxxed, we shouldn't do it. Therefore, and especially if you wanted to dox someone, you shouldn't dox people on your own side, even if you disagree about strategy or tactics or those kinds of things.
Well, if you think about it, Ricky Vaughn has the data of thousands of white nationalists who he was basically trying to dox.
Well, that's not.
Dr. Strangelove, your mic is messing up.
Your mic's all crap.
Can you maybe leave and then come back or something?
Yeah.
I think though, before he comes back, I think even if he had all this information on people, if he hasn't done anything bad with it, I don't see that there's a problem. And the worst thing you could
he tried to make money by selling it. He tried to sell that information. So I consider that.
Who do you try to sell that information to?
Yeah, that's why you always want to, before you get too loose about joining people's podcasts through paywall and other change in information. That's why you want to verify who these people are before you give that information over. I mean, there are a lot of scum. Let me tell you something. A lot of scummy
Well,
people around. A lot of fake right wingers. A lot of scum.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of people that jumped on this whole thing because they saw that there was an opportunity to become somebody. They're like, oh, well, the left has all their people and all that, but on the right, there's just a bunch of boomers. So if if you're a younger person, especially if you're like diverse or gay or something, like I mean, Milo showed that, right? I mean, he was like, oh, look, I'm going to fight against my own side. Like I should technically, according to what I am, be on their side, but I'm not. Therefore, I'm going to fight them. And then there's a lot of people like, you see Red Pill Black who essentially is doing the same thing, except for she's just black. So she's going to essentially be fighting against her own people. And there's a lot of people that are given platforms just because of who they are and because it like fits them. They're like, oh, well, technically, according to your logic, I should be on your side. Therefore, I'm not. And I'm very much helping the battle because I'm red pilling my own people that you don't have to look this way to think this way. And so because of that, they're given a platform by usually a bunch of like quiet boomers.
Yeah, and the funny thing about the Candace Owen thing, she exposes the hypocrisy of the whole. I'm not sure how you want to call these people. I'm not sure how to give these a name, but I guess you call them the boomer conservatism or the alt-right, whatever you call them. How identity politics. Oh, we should stop using identity politics. But then you got Candace Owens. Did you see that? Did you see that whole Turning Point in USA that with I think she works with Charlie Kirk now. They're going on these college speaking tours, trying to sell, using Candace Owens as some sort of spokesperson to these. I think these are their words, to sell conservatism to the black community. I go, okay, well, I thought there was no identity politics. So why is it so needle that you're trying to use a woman of color to sell conservatism to a community of color? I thought I thought you were supposed to sell conservatism just based on merits, not by any sort of ethnic sales pitch. It's just funny. It's funny how when it comes to push comes to shove,
politics are.
Yeah, it's just that whole the Candace Owen thing is so cringy. It's some crap that boomers something you sell to boomers and still blue pilled conservatives.
Another major thing too.
Logic.
Oh, another major thing too is that most of these people, like the Fox News people, basically the older people that see her on Turning Point, that saw her on Fox, they have no idea her past. They have no idea that she was part of a group that was doxing right-wing people. They were threatening and harassing them, and they were saying like, "We have your information, and if you don't essentially shut up online, we're gonna dox you and destroy your life." Like that's some serious shit. That's not like oh well, I was just a Bernie Sanders supporter and I never heard the other side's points. Now I have, therefore I am a right wing person now. Like she just essentially said, oh, I was trying to ruin people's lives that were conservatives, and for whatever reason, she never really goes into that reason. She just essentially says like, oh, I went to a Trump rally or something, and now I'm like red pilled, and now she's like a huge like leader in the right. Like I don't believe that crap for 1 second. Like if you're going around really like being a serious leftist, like you're trying to destroy the opposition, and for you to somehow jump over to the other side and be a spokesperson, and for people to feel comfortable with a piece of garbage like that having such a high powered position. I mean, at any point she could just turn around on us when she feels like she has enough followers or whatever, and she could start pushing whatever agenda she wants.
Yeah, pure. This is pure scum. This is to just turn around like that and to correct your information according to the David Rubin debate when Candace Owen was yelling at Blair White, that whole cringe fest. She wasn't running a doxing search. She wasn't running a doxing website. It was a identity archive. I believe that's what she used. Yeah, we're going to have identities of individuals, of trolls, on an archive so that so employers may access them to understand if these people were trolls. I said, so it's not a doxing website, it's a identity archive. I don't know what the difference is.
Yeah, it's essentially like, we're not going to dox you right now, but if you don't do what we say, we will do something despicable with that information. And that's why, and look, people I believe that's called
blackmail. I thought that was a crime to blackmail somebody.
Yeah, and here's the thing: when it comes to these people, when it comes to these scummy merchant people that are just in it for the fame and the money, or they're just infiltrators, what's going to happen is they always implode, and the implosion of them, like people finding out, like, oh, like you're actually scum, like what happened with Baked, essentially. When these people do implode, and they always do, and she imploded in the YouTube community during, like you brought up, the Dave Rubin thing where she was fighting that fucking tranny thing, and what's going to happen is she's going to implode. She's going to get caught. Like more information is going to get out there, or people are just going to someone in a position that she's in, part of the community that she's in now, like a Turning Point person or a Fox News contributor, is going to look up this stuff because they don't know about the YouTube stuff. They probably don't know about the Dave Rubin stuff. You'd be surprised with how people don't really look up the people that they hire into their groups. They just hear some good stuff, or they see that, oh, you have a big following, or you look this way, and that helps our narrative, and they just hire them right on. And if any of these people see this information and it gets out, or if the left decides, if they grow a brain and they throw that information out there when she starts really gaining momentum, she's going to implode. She's going to act scummy, like a certain someone. It always happens. And when she implodes, it's going to hurt the movement. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt Turning Point. It's going to hurt Fox. It's going to hurt all of their credibilities, because when these people implode, they when a grenade goes off, even though you're like not right underneath it, if you're like close to it, you still get hit with the impact, and you still get knocked down. Yeah, and so it's going to be bad. And I'm very surprised that like Turning Point would hire someone, and because there's other people. Look, if you need to hire like a black person because it looks good, and when a Black Lives Matter person goes after Charlie Kirk and calls him a racist, and then he needs someone to point to prove he's not racist, one of those virtue signaling people, I'm sure he can find someone that's not scummy, that looks the way he wants. I just think this whole situation with Candace is just gonna blow up. She blew up on YouTube before. I haven't watched the Blair White stuff, but I heard it was a huge shit show. It was just essentially. Yeah, and did you watch it?
Yeah, I watched some of it. She started the debate. Candace Owen started the debate right off, referring to Blair White as him. I'm not comfortable debating this man. I was like, oh my God, she started right off the bat. I'm going to start referring to Blair as, we're using the him pronoun rather than the her pronoun, because Blair White is technically a man. That's how the debate got started.
Was the whole debate literally just ad hominems and like throwing personal information out there?
But yeah, it was all ad hominems. It was really nothing. Even David Rubin halfway through it got disgusted and was gonna shut it down, because even he was like, "Oh, this is getting more bad." But the funny thing about the Candace Owens situation is that it's funny for a guy for the Turning Point USA crowd, the Ben Shapiro, the Charlie Kirk, to sit there and hire Candace Owens. Not I'll put it this way: if Candace Owens was a legitimate academic, someone who was like a Thomas Sowell, who said, okay, this is how it is, and Thomas Sowell's been doing that for years. He has a long track record of backing up what he's done and what he said. Simply them to hire Candace Owens, simply not based on her past on her accomplishments or abilities, but simply just by how she looks and that she gets a good thing to sell, like a good salesperson. You openly acknowledge that, one, identity politics matters, and that your whole supposed conservatism people are not going to buy it simply just based on your merits. So this whole facts over feelings meme, they keep pushing this whole conservative values or universal. Obviously, by you acknowledging that all that low status of someone simply based on the looks rather than the abilities, you're openly acknowledging that your so-called values can't people don't buy it, can't sell themselves. So you have to have that. So you have to have a Candace Owens sell it.
Yeah, I call them like virtue signaling friends. So essentially, it's like when someone calls you a racist, and I think the king of this is probably Baked, actually, because when someone calls him a racist, he has he has RC right there. When someone calls him anti-Semitic, he has, oh, Laura Loomer's my friend, Mike Tokes. When someone calls him like a xenophobe, he's got his Mexican friends there. He's got like a friend for every little like phobia there is, essentially.
And it's and all the degenerate behavior they engage in. It's gross. It's scum. It's scum. I try to remove all scum away from scum. Scum is what you do. Scum you do. There's two things you do with scum. You flush it down the toilet or you wash it down the drain. There's nothing you do with scum. There's no purpose of scum.
Yeah, and
what's funny is
go ahead.
I used to work for BuzzFeed, and BuzzFeed puts out articles saying just because you have friends of color doesn't mean you're not racist. So,
yeah.
Basically, according to the left, white people are guilty no matter what they do. I've seen articles saying that even if like a white person is in a relationship with a non-white person, like let's just say a guy is married to a black woman and they're having kids and all that stuff, they'll say that white guy is still like somehow racist. They'll say even if you have black friends, you're still racist. Like no matter what you do, they cannot give up their power, and their power comes from, if you're white, you are a KKK member, you're a Nazi, you're an evil racist, and there's nothing you can do that will prove to them that you're not racist, because all of their power comes from being able to shout a quick little insult at you, right? It comes down to saying you are racist, you hate blacks, you hate whatever, right? That's all they have. They don't have any arguments. All they have is an insult and just a bunch of lies, essentially. And they can't give that up because that is their power, right? That is like the Green Lantern ring, and they don't want to give up that power. So all they can do is just say, it's impossible for you to not be racist because we want to make it impossible for us to give up our power. And that's what it comes down to. That's why, you hear people on the right talking about what the optic or like what the tactics should be. They're like, oh, well, no matter what you do, you could do everything the left wants, but it's impossible to actually appease them. Therefore, you should not try. Therefore, you should, some people say be like a full-blown National Socialist and just whatever. But yeah, I think it is impossible to appease the left, and we see a lot of businesses, probably like Starbucks, and they do try to appease the left. You see comic book industries try to appease the left, and it never works. Every single time that they do not double down, they essentially say "F you" to their actual base. And then it's kind of funny because then they end up like Poland. They're getting hit by both sides, and then we'll see what happens from there.
Leftist politics totally destroyed Star Wars. I mean, we can't have Star Wars without leftist politics involved. I mean,
yeah, like everything is politics because politics is at it's the number one trending thing. Whenever I walk around and do those topic IRL streams, and I walk around and I ask people. I asked one guy, I said, oh, what's your thoughts on Trump? And all of a sudden the situation got all like tense, it's like, oh crap, like based off what you say and based off how I react to it, like you get this feeling that like someone's going to pull out a weapon and it's going to turn into a fight to the death sort of thing. So it's something that's like everywhere. It's at the forefront. And in some ways it's a good thing because now we're actually seeing what's going on. I think in the past we just kind of said, oh, who cares? And we just didn't, and they would do shady stuff behind the scenes, and we just wouldn't care about it because we didn't really know those things. But now it's at the forefront, and now we care about everything. And now every single move that Trump makes or the Democrats make, it's out there for the entire world to see. So it can be a good thing, but like you said, it is killing industries. It's killing anything that's good. Because the left wants to jump on everything. Anything that's big that people care about, they want to go over there and police it. They want to police, like you said, Star Wars. They want to police Marvel Comics. They want to police Starbucks now. They want to police anything that is big, and they want control over everything. But the problem is the people that are feeding money into these businesses are essentially not leftist people. Maybe in Starbucks, maybe probably the left probably goes to Starbucks a lot. I don't really know. I would think a lot of them probably do. But when it comes to like Marvel Comics or Star Wars, that's essentially like white straight males that actually buy the comic books, that actually that actually read the Star Wars books. These aren't a bunch of like the feminists and like, for instance, like even like a lot of like non-white people. I don't think that there's a whole bunch of them that are super into like Star Wars or those things. Like usually when you go to Comic Con, I mean it's very diverse now, but like in the past, like the hardcore fans are essentially like a lot of white straight guys. And so if you're pushing shit at them that is essentially like not supporting them anymore, they're not going to buy it anymore. And that's why we're starting to see all these industries start to implode on themselves, because they're basically doing this to their own base of people, and then they're somehow surprised that it's not working out because they're trying to appease a group of people that actually don't care about their industry and they don't actually support it, but they think they do because this group is very loud. And so or they think, oh, we're going to get a bunch of like trannies and feminists to start buying our books if we just make comics about them. But these people don't actually like comic books, and they like to bully groups. They like to do that, but they don't actually care about those groups in themselves. They just like to use their power, their oppression, and to bully groups.
I can't wait to get back to this what we're talking about. I can't wait until how cringy Candace Owens' book tour is going to be, because a book tour is in the future.
Can we somehow get Laura Loomer to go after Candace Owen? Can we push that?
Nah, I'll like to see it, but I don't think I don't know, but I'll see that happening. But the way Laura Loomer is, for all you know, she's trying to get a job with them anyway. So who knows? But she's a train wreck too. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're she wants to be the, hey, look, I'm, if you hire me, then they can't call you anti-Semitic. And if they do, I'll just jump on and I'll defend you. So like, I think she wants to be you aren't anti-Semitic, Power Ranger, essentially, because it seems like there's always a Power Ranger like, oh, you're racist, and then the white guy goes like this, and then the black guy jumps out in front, like deflects that attack and says, see, that's impossible. And you have like you have one of those Power Rangers for every single group. It always seems like.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy that we know like the backstory of some of these. It's funny that we have our people we try to mean to some sort of notoriety, but the establishment has their way of meaning. The fact that we know that some of these people are total cringy, and we know that these people are fake conservatives, they're merchants. It's just funny. It's like, man, when you see the truth, you can really call out the fakery.
Yeah, most of these people behind closed doors, they're pretty scummy, and they see it all as. Yeah, they see it all as like what benefits them sort of thing, and they'll shake hands and deal with whoever. It's really funny that like when you're behind, when the stream is over and you talk to these people after the events, and then usually we eat together and stuff, and it's just funny how like like for someone like Baked, for instance, I know like all the people that he associates with. And I know the amount of shit that those associates have told me in private about him. So but then they go on the live stream and they're hugging and they're like, yeah, what's up, Baked? Oh yeah, like Baked didn't do nothing. And they do all this, and then next thing you know, I'm getting a message saying that like Baked is like such a cringy faggot, and it's like fuck, like whatever, you gotta do what you gotta do, right? So that's why I say, look, there's a lot of parasites, and they're just like drinking blood from each other, and he was sitting there trying to drink blood from Worski, and then he had a bunch of little ones that were on him. So he's a parasite, and he's got parasites all over him, and he's trying to leech off, Ice Poseidon, Worski, people like that. And I told Worski that on the Kumite, and no one really objected to it. But I think the main reason why he was able to infiltrate them was because they don't know what a merchant is. Like in their communities, in the blood sports communities, they don't know what a merchant is because they're not part of the political movement. that they're just part of, they talk like ideals and ideologies and political philosophies, but they don't deal with actual politics themselves or activism. So they don't understand those things. Like I'm part of that community more so than I am with, the blood sports community. I understand the blood sports community now, but I'm more of like an activism person, and I kind of see these political people trying to rise up in the way they go about it. And so they don't, once they understand what a merchant is, and I think they do now, they'll be better. They'll have a bigger arsenal to be able to deal with these people that are going in there just for the sake of like, hey, can you retweet me? Hey, can you help me out? Hey, like, can you be my friend? Essentially,
yeah, it's all about the likes, the streaming numbers, the super chats. It has no. It's funny. It's funny that the white, well, I should say the supposed fake conservatives tout so much of values and principles, yet some of these people have absolutely none.
Yeah, everyone's doing it for a different reason. I would say a lot of people, they just see an opportunity to get something, or they just have a lot of ambition or something along those lines.
I always say the same thing. Where were these people at 2 years ago during the primaries? You know what I mean? Where were these people at during the primaries?
A lot of these people, they were nowhere to be seen when Trump was, like you said, when he was running against the other Republicans. And when he was going up against Hillary, they were nowhere to be seen either. Because I think a lot of these people thought that Hillary was going to win, and they didn't want to be laughed at. But I was out there. I put myself in like a Trump costume, and then Emily dressed up as Hillary, and we were down there with LA for Trump and these activism groups. I went to pro-Trump rallies. I didn't film it at the time. I didn't have that idea. I had like the idea to record things, but I didn't know what live streaming was. There's evidence of me being at the Anaheim rally because that was the first time that I essentially met Baked. But he was just walking around and he had a Periscope, and I think he talked to me, and I was like, if anyone wants to try to dig that out, that would be fun. But yeah, I was just like, I just gave my little take and I left. And I was with like a little political group. But yeah, back then, like even when I was friends with him, I didn't ask him for retweets. I didn't ask him. I wasn't trying to use anybody. I got on the Red Elephants because Vincent asked me to do it. I didn't beg my way on. I didn't do anything scummy. I was essentially going to do my own thing. I was going to build my own audience organically. And I jumped on, I was able to get on the Red Elephants, and I was asked to do it. And then I started doing work for them. And, I just see a lot of people, I think they just saw, Trump is like, that's the bandwagon. They jumped on. You find out there's a lot of these people are Bernie Sanders supporters, or they didn't vote in general. Like I don't know if it's true, but I heard an accusation saying that Diamond and Silk didn't vote at all. And so, yeah. And so there's a lot of these people, and I don't want to like name names, but essentially the people that are like throwing out the most garbage are usually the biggest hypocrites.
Yeah, so, yeah. You don't want to say too much because you want to get sued for slander or anything. Might cause it. Never make an accusation you can't back up with proven evidence. That gets people in trouble.
Yeah. So but a lot of these guys are just Bernie Sanders supporters, and they just saw that this was the bandwagon. They thought Bernie was a bandwagon. That whole thing burnt down. So now they're on the next bandwagon, and those are essentially usually the people that are doing the scummy stuff. And I think it's because they're just in this movement just for, like you said, the retweets. They want fame. They want whatever. And I'm not in it for that. I was live streaming on Facebook, and you don't get any money or anything that way. I didn't start going on YouTube till way after. And I'm not in it for the money, but I'm not gonna like turn off super chats. Like if you guys want to donate money, I'm totally fine with that. But I will say I've done this for a long time without any money coming in whatsoever. I was working and then going to political stuff on the weekends. It was kind of a mix between doing like a political work and then doing activism. So, but I mean that's just me, and it's unfortunate that there's not a whole lot of people. There's actually more scummy people in this thing than there is people like myself that don't really do it for those reasons. And that's why I like to keep my circles very small, because these people, they can turn on you in a dime, and next thing you know, like your private text messages are out there, and they're sitting there dirtying your name, and they're saying this, saying that, and it's just, I keep my circle very small. And not only that, but like I don't really send anyone like any like major information anymore, because it's crazy that I've had friends that I was like, oh wow, like this guy and me were really tight, and I may have lost friends due to this whole political thing, but at least I'm gaining some like really high quality ones. And then 3 months later, next thing you know, this person's like throwing out huge accusations, and they're just flipping on you. And you're like, fuck, like you were my ally 1 second, and the next minute, like you're starting to pull out daggers. You're pulling this like Brutus on me. And yeah, but I mean, it's an eye opener. I don't know if it's the political scene or if it's just an eye opener on just people in general. But there's a lot of scum out there.
Yeah, a lot of scum. Hell, Jesus had 12 friends, and one of them stabbed him in the back. You know what I mean? It's the way things are, man. There's always a Judas among apostles.
Yeah, and I think the reason why they do it is they see that there's some sort of like, either it's because of their ego and they do it, or it's because they see some sort of like monetary opportunity that they're trying to hop on. It's usually one of the two. And lately, with all the drama going on in just the YouTube communities, with like with JF, the acting the way he has lately, with like Fuentes and the Ralph situation, and with Baked, I see a lot of it is just basically ego. And these people they're not like with Fuentes, JF, and Baked. I think it's just mainly all ego. Like when Baked got called out for all the things he didn't say whether it was like actually right or wrong. He could have sat there and said, "You guys are all right. I apologize." He could have just done that, right? He could have essentially kind of like just completely just cucked and just said, "You guys are right," and then he would have been better off. But because his ego is way too big, he thinks he's bigger than everyone. He thinks, didn't he tell Mr. Medicare like, "Oh, you're just jealous because I'm like famous and you're not," or something like that?
Yeah.
And he's like, "It's just
famous of what? Like, what are you famous? How are you famous? Who actually even knows who you are? Like, how did you? I mean, I don't understand why. Who are your following? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Like, who knows you? I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I think it's just,
anybody. In fact, the way things are going now, you're gonna have probably more subs to your channel probably in a couple months than he is.
Yeah, I mean that'd be fun to do a challenge there to see if we could get my channel bigger than his or something like that. But yeah, I think it's the ego thing, because instead of just admitting he was doing screwed up things and he's being a hypocrite, instead of doing that, he decides to he always makes the wrong move. Like when I was friends with him, I was trying to say, "Look, dude, you're befriending a lot of scumbags," and I gave him a bunch of reasons why they were. I gave him even like evidence for why they were. And he just was like, oh, he did this whole like 16-year-old girl argument. "Oh, you can't tell me what to do. What are you, my dad?" kind of thing. And I'm like, dude, do what you want. But like, I'm not I got to do my own thing too. And then look what's going on right now, right? He keeps befriending all these like scumbags because his ego's too big. He thinks he's always right because he's made some good decisions. I mean, he accumulated that big following on Twitter because he's had some good decisions and things like that. But that just because you make good decisions, that doesn't mean all your decisions are good. And I think a lot of these guys who are starting to go from nothing to something think that their decisions that got them there are correct, and therefore all of their decisions are correct. So they should always, like, all of their instincts are always correct. And then when you attack those decisions, they back it up, they reinforce it with their ego. And I think we're seeing that a lot with like JF, for instance, where he's starting to censor people, he's starting to block people, and people are like, "Hey, like, aren't you Mr. Libertarian free speech guy?" And then he has a high IQ, which means that he's able to be very slippery, right? But it doesn't, like, you could have the best argument possible, but you could still be wrong. And so that's why, like, his, at least in the chats from what I've seen, is he's just gotten like, on the Count Dacula thing, he was just getting smashed in the comments, just, "Oh, you're this, you're that." And I have to agree with him. And I actually I tweeted a few things, and I don't have a big Twitter. I have a very small Twitter. I don't put much effort into it whatsoever. I just go on there to like look to see what's going on in the communities and stuff. And I actually got blocked by JF, and I'm like, really? Like, dude, I have no push. Like, why would you block me? And not only that, but I think that's a huge pussy move. And he can say, oh well, it is my Twitter, and I could block or not block whoever I like, and that is my safe space. And I've heard his argument for it, but that still doesn't negate the fact that you're being a fucking like communist prick, you know. And it's really sad because I think his ego like is getting really big to the point where he's starting to be a hypocrite. And he has a high IQ, so he's able to justify him being a hypocrite, but it still doesn't negate the fact that he's being a hypocrite. And I think it all is happening because of ego. And same thing with like the Fuentes situation where he's deciding to basically take up Bill Mitchell type points where he's like in support of like the Syria attack, and then he was basically being a baked Alaska apologist. And I think in his mind, he thinks he's being edgy because he's like, well, everyone is basically saying they want to be isolationists when it comes to Syria. They don't want a war, and everyone is shitting on baked. Therefore, to be edgy, I have to be the opposite of these things. And people are attacking him, and they're saying why he's wrong. But then his ego is getting in front of it, and he won't and he won't admit anything, you know, and it turns into these wild firefights because everyone's egos are right there and they won't admit anything. Well, what's your take on all that, Victor?
Yeah, pretty much. I think it's these e-celebs, man. This e-celeb garbage. I had a discussion with one guy saying he was with a bunch of Patreon people. I said, dude, get rid of these Patrons. You're actually contributing to the problem with these e-celebs. I said these e-celebs, all they do is start drama, and since drama equals viewership to their YouTube channels, and hopefully more views equals more Patreon donations, I said they contribute nothing. The minute a person, for whatever reason, they may starting their YouTube channel, maybe for like journalism, a blog, who knows what legitimate purpose may start one. The minute they go from, well, I have my viewership not because of what I do, because of me. The minute they have it somehow, it's because they're watching me, not for what the content I'm producing. You got yourself an e-celeb, and unfortunately, when you get the e-celeb sickness, it's like a drug addict. You have to let these guys hit rock bottom to realize, yo, we're not here for you. We're here for what you used to do. For your content, and the fact that you're not producing your content and think we're here for you, I'd rather just go spend my money somewhere else.
Yeah, I actually think the best person to look to when it comes to how they portray themselves and not being a sellout is probably actually Tim Pool. And I know a lot of people make fun of him, and I completely understand it. And I jumped on the whole like, oh, you're trying to be like a, you know, in the middle moderate guy, like you're just a fucking cuck or whatever. Yeah. And I've said all that, but at the end of the day, he doesn't have a huge like ego. And and all of his videos are about whatever. He goes to something, he'll talk about it, and then once he's done talking about the event or he throws the information out there, he ends it right there. Like once it's all about the event or whatever, he'll give you the information because he's a journalist, and then once the information's over, the video's done. And honestly, like I don't really even know anything about him. I don't really watch his videos all that much. I used to in the past quite a bit during like all the crazy events. You know, you'd like to hear different takes on things during the election cycle. But yeah, he didn't have an ego. He wasn't into himself or anything like that. He would just go to Sweden or events, and he would just give his points on what was happening, or he would just put out the content. And once the content was done, which is why people followed him, it was over. You know, he's never done any live streams being like, hey guys, like let's talk about me for like fucking hour and a half or anything like that. So I think he's definitely a person that people should look to be able to like, you know, not spiral out of control when it comes to just political stuff in general.
Yeah, and he talked about he was very upfront with him talking about internet censorship. Some of the stuff he covers as a legitimate journalist isn't politically motivated or has any sort of political angle, even though everyone knows he's a Bernie Sanders leftist. I mean, but when it comes to internet censorship, that's something that goes across any political spectrum. and he's really good about it. He's always about keeping to his business. He's a journalist. He always keeps to his guns as being a journalist. He's going to discuss topics. He's going to investigate it and try to not have any political spin to it. Even though we all know he's a lefty, but he tries to keep his politics out of his journalism.
Yeah, he actually does try, and he came to some sort of like after party after like the Portland, Oregon stuff, and he actually was sitting there with like a bunch of us, and we were all right wing people. Like, you know, Bay Stickman was there, James Allsup, me and Vincent were there, Brittany Pettibone, and he was going around, and it was very casual, and he was walking around talking to people, and he was just kind of standing around a little awkwardly, and people would go up to him and start talking to him, and I'd taken I went up to Tim Pool at an LA event. And I said, hey, I said fan, but I know of him essentially, but I think the best way of saying, oh, I'm a fan, can I get a picture? And he's a real down to earth, good guy. And he doesn't have this huge the minute I show up at an event, like, where's all the people worshiping me? Where's all the people sitting here kissing my ass and that kind of thing. Yeah. And I see a lot of that. These people thinking that they're gonna, that eventually that they think that they're gonna be like the next, the next Trump or next Hitler kind of thing. Like that guy that walks in and changes everything. And I'm getting a lot of people with that personality that they think that they're going to do that, and that that's fine. I mean, when it comes to right-wing people, if you really think you can make a change, if there's some sort of angle or some sort of tactic that you have that you think will do something, like when it comes to people on the right, I don't care who it is. I don't want the left to win. They're going to destroy everything. I don't care if it's the neocons or the white nationalists or the normie Trump people or whoever. I want the right to win. And then those people can sit around and have discourse on the best way that the next few hundred years of the nation should go. I don't want the left to win, and I don't really care who wins on the right. I just want the right to win. Yeah. Dr. Strangelove, do you have any takes on anything?
Sorry, I'm engaged in a debate with your woman. She's like all mad and threatening to put me in purgatory for talking about dinosaurs or whatever.
Oh my God.
She's actually teamed up with retard Zeus against me. It's kind of funny.
She has like more power than me, so good luck.
Watch out. Papa Chan has a power level of over 9,000. Can't mess with someone like that.
Yeah, that's that's one of the people that like I have like no power against, unfortunately. Yeah. But I don't know why. That's why I brought it up at the beginning, because a lot of people, like, I see these giant arguments over this stuff, and then from what I've heard, it's just it's just you saying, hey, look, I see some stuff, I see some evidence, and then you drop it, and then it turns into these big giant shit shows of people like just giant. I usually see the end of it, just giant shit shows. I've actually seen that like over probably like the last hour, the chat was just absolutely dead. I see Crypto Report in here. It's too bad he's not able to join. He says that Discord is essentially like Facebook now, where they're selling everyone's information and stuff. So he's not down to come on. That's unfortunate, but I mean, I do respect that.
You got to watch out. I mean, I think the fact that realizing that Discord is now in the whole disclosing your private information. That's another thing. I wish some of these YouTubers, these e-celebs that don't really pull their weight, will discuss, like, when it comes to tech businesses, whether it be Google, social media platforms, or even email services. I cut my thumb like a couple weeks ago. I had to go to emergency care room. Okay, I went there. I filled out the paperwork, showed them my personal information, showed them I had insurance. Okay, went mail, got treated, left, signed the release, everything. If me giving my personal information, medical information to this urgent care center, and that in turn gave my information and sold my information, whatever it was, my height, weight, health, whatever, to show they have high blood pressure, and they sold that to someone. Go, oh, this guy's high blood pressure. He must like a lot of fatty foods. And I start getting spam in my mailbox about how, oh, there's going to be new sales on pork and beef at all the supermarkets in my area. I said, what other business model, what other business is allowed for them to openly sell your private information and not have any sort of negative repercussions? If this hospital would sell my information, that's a law. You can't just dissolve private people's information without their consent and sell it for a profit. I mean, you can't do that. Why have all other businesses, if someone did that, if McDonald's, a supermarket, any sort of establishment was found out to be stolen information of the customers, that place would be, whether it be through lawsuits or just by people boycotting it, will be thrown out of business. But yet tech companies, when it comes to your private information, that's open forum. That's public domain. No, it's not the public domain.
So what are like the ramifications of that? Like, because I hear a lot of people bring this up. Like, even when it comes to your own, like if you go to like 23andMe or Ancestry, you can give consent to give your information to whatever, and Ancestry and 23andMe, or I forget which. I don't know if it's one of them or both of them do this. I know on Ancestry they basically said if you give consent, they can do something with your DNA. They could send it to third parties or whatever. But when it comes to that, and when it comes to like Facebook selling your information, I would assume it's like basically your behavior patterns, which would help advertisers and business better predict what people want and what they're more susceptible to. What's like the worst case scenario on those things? Because I hear a lot of people bring up, hey, they're giving your information to businesses. Like I could hear arguments for it saying, oh, well, that'll be better for us because that'll make it somehow easier on customers. But what are like the worst case scenarios on this kinds of stuff? Because I haven't really heard people bring up the worst case scenarios. I just hear people say, hey, it's not good that they're selling your information. But like, what could they essentially do with that would be really bad?
Well, look what just happened with Zuckerberg about how it's a funny thing. The fake Russia investigation uncovered the fact that Zuckerberg and even Twitter and all these other fake social media platforms, for them being so loose with your private information and selling it in bulk to these companies, to these third parties, they now have tracking information, behavioral patterns of huge sections of the population, and that's how that whole Facebook fake Russia investigation started coming to head with Zuckerberg having to come stake to the state capitol. Well, now you can control information of what information these people are going to consume. That's how it goes back to swings it back into the whole fake news thing. Overhyping certain stories, burying certain things in search results. I mean, information's power, man, and that's what they're doing.
So because I heard in like China, for instance, that they have a lot of cameras there, and they're actually going to give their police these devices that I think they'll give them like they'll give them like AIs, which can just predict like who is like a criminal and who isn't. And they'll have like cameras everywhere that like they'll put everyone's information in a database. And basically when you walk around, you'll have like the cops will have these like glasses that can just show everyone's face and name and their crime, like they'll show like arrest records and things like that. So like essentially if you're like a criminal and you're walking around and a cop turns and sees you, you go through the database and it'll show who you are. And then, it's kind of like a minority report kind of, except for using technology instead of like psychics. And they could just run and just like grab you. Like it'll show like, let's say the left incorporated this and they'll say, oh, there's Nathan Domingo over the white nationalist, which is being a white nationalist is a crime. And then they'll see that in their little glasses and then they'll have the tranny squad go and get him or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And another thing about these third parties with the amount of information, look, it's every 3 to 6 months, there's always some sort of huge announcement. Yahoo had a big announcement that like a couple of years ago their servers were hacked and millions and millions of users email. We're not talking simply just about email information. Big deal. You get some spam, some send an email. Big deal. When it comes to us in these social media accounts, let's say on Twitter you're now a verified user. I'm not a verified user on Twitter, but whatever information that you can put onto Twitter to verify that is you who you say you are. With them selling that information, now you just narrowed, gave them more information. You just narrowed the search of who actually is who you are. You just know the street level between your ISP. It's getting to a way where it's a lot easier for hackers to hack into these third party. That's another thing. No one ever gave a clarify how secure these third parties, information gatherers. What are they doing for your information? How secure is their means of securing your information that's being? So this is a can of worms. The way I view it, we should start treating your private information on the internet the same way we treat your mail. It's from the mail that you send in your local post office. There's no one else's business open it between you and the person you're sending. If someone to go to your mailbox and your mail, your private mail, that's a federal crime. That's the way I feel we should treat personal information. If you have personal information on Facebook and someone third party goes into that information, whether it be through malice, intent, or just incompetence on Facebook itself, there should be liability.
Yeah, because I heard a good argument you gave. You said that like you give your credit card or debit card information to McDonald's and places like this, these private businesses, and you don't see them like getting all these card informations and sending it to any third parties. But when it comes to social media sites, all of a sudden like everyone has this different perspective on things. Like when it comes to social media or your DNA, all of a sudden people are like, oh well. It could help businesses better treat its customers. Therefore, it's like totally fine.
No, well, that's not information. I want you to know it. It goes back to this. I remember. I mean, if you want to buy a house and you're going to get a mortgage from a bank, if the bank says, "Oh, we'll give you a loan, we'll give you interest upon this terms," it's okay, it's fine. But by the way, the information you gave us about your credit history, where you live at, your past residences, all the information you gave us to get this qualify this mortgage. We're going to bundle this up with about 1 million other people, and we're going to sell to advertising firms and anyone else businesses just so they could find out what you're buying and consumer habits, just so they could probably sell you or not just sell you stuff, but do whatever they want just to keep a track. And you look at that mortgage company, go, okay, I'm going somewhere else, dude. Why would you want to take that information? The age of where we're going to prioritize our private information is going to be a very interesting thing about it. And none of these people on the YouTube sphere, bloggers, Twitter trolls, whatever you want to call it, these social media celebrities, they all complain about censorship and private information. But when it comes to actually trying to get something done that has of merit, it's always you get a bunch of crickets, which is kind of like, well. With these YouTubers that have whatever skeptics, trolls, whatever you want to call these social media celebrities, some people have like I put it this way, give an example. Mike Cernovich with his whole free speech and his whole documentary crap talked about censorship and everything. I said that's a good thing. You made a documentary, but when it comes to actually you recognize that your private information should be secure. Okay, so how are we going to find means to keep it secure? That's why I keep saying the law of us, how we apply our private information would be just a simple mail service. I think that should be the law we treat our internet information.
Yeah. We have a few minutes left. I said originally that I was going to do like the stream was said. It was called like 3 hours live stream. We're about 2 hours and 56 minutes in, so we'll talk a little bit more. But I guess when it comes to that kind of stuff, the thing that gets me is I hear people always talking about the problems. This is true of the left and right. They'll talk about whatever problems that hurt them the most, and they talk about the problems, and they talk about the problems, and they talk about we're getting censored. On the left they'll say, all the black people are getting killed all the time. And on the right, they'll say, we're getting censored. But no one really ever talks about real solutions. They're like, all right, look, we have a problem. Here's our solution. Here's why we believe our solution will actually work. And I don't really hear that on either side. Like on the right, they'll talk about we're getting censored on Twitter. Some people have actually come up with a solution, and they've said, let's just we'll enact a anti-censorship legislation that will basically have the government regulate Twitter and places like that, and say that these places are public forums, I believe is what it is. And so that's their solution, and at least that is a solution. There's a lot of people like, Paul Joseph Watson and people like that who are constantly crying about getting censored. And it's like, look, dude, I'm on your side. It sucks, but you can only cry wolf so many, or not really cry wolf, but you can only talk about how you're getting oppressed so many times. Like at some point you have to say, look, look, we all get it. They're going after you. They're going after all of us. Like I've been banned on Facebook, like probably a dozen times. I'm still banned. My original Twitter got taken off, and on YouTube I was restricted for a long time. Is that noise loud, by the way?
It's a little loud, but
okay.
To get back to the point about the Paul Joseph Watson, it was funny. It was funny that at the Senate hearing with Zuckerberg, the first person they brought out was Diamond and Silk. I said, Diamond and Silk. I mean, where were you at when websites were getting the domain registers removed, getting withheld? I mean, that's like having things shut down on Facebook. That's like milquetoast stuff compared to stuff that they've been doing. The data breaches, the data mining on consumers of some of these websites. That people literally track you between that and also what goes on the ISPs with your information there. Between that and if you want to get it, who's your internet service provider? I said this is. I mean, getting stuff taken away on social media. That's hardly anything. And I get back to the people like Paul Joseph Watson constantly complaining. It's like, well, you're complaining, but it's like a kid getting punched in the face by a bully. Well, you're complaining that you're getting bullied. You're going to get up and punch him back. I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Everyone talks about problems, but no one ever, when it comes to actually finding solutions to these problems, you get crickets. So, and these people are supposed to be these hard edge, cutting edge social media YouTubers that have all the
influencers.
Debate me on another Bloodsport live stream. Okay, good. How did that really help anything? You gain a couple more likes or viewership numbers, subscribers, or another Patreon donation. It didn't help anybody. You're still going to get censored.
Yeah, I feel like everyone's guilty of that too, because even like I listen to like the alt-right and the white nationalists, and they don't really have any real solutions either. Like, you hear Spencer talk about the ethno state, and they'll talk about this and that and these ideals and stuff. But then it's like, how are you, like, what's your step-by-step process? It's cool to have an ideal. It's cool to have like this idea in your head, essentially. But like, how are any of you guys going to do it? And look, I get that they're trying to normalize what they're trying to do. They're, the first step is you have to make sure that what you're saying is, you have to get legitimized. And I get what they're doing, but you also have to come up with like solutions. And when it comes to like we were talking about with censorship, it's one thing to say, hey, look, I'm getting censored, I'm getting shadow banned. Here's all the reasons why. Here's all the evidence that proves what I'm saying. It's like, okay, fine, but you got to do something, and all your audience and people like that. I mean, you got to tell them, hey, go, message the president about this. Everyone call him up and tell him we're being censored, and tell him that here's our solution. Like, we need a solution, and we can't be like the left where we just cry about problems, but we have no solutions. We need to have actual solutions that we can have conversations about, and this goes for everyone, every single person on both sides. You guys need to. You see a problem, we get it. Now come up with a solution, and then we could talk about whether that solution is the best way to go about it. And then from there, after the conversation is hopefully done with, then we can start pushing it. Because I'm really sick of hearing everyone talk about how they're getting censored. And look, I get it. I'm getting censored too. But we can only cry about it for so long. Let's just come up with a solution. Like, should we just go to Gab? Should we push for legislation? Should we do both? We need to come up with a united front on these issues, and we need to just get them done, because I'm sick of people crying about, I'm banned, oh, I'm suspended, I'm this, I'm that, oh my God. Like, this organization, Facebook or Twitch or YouTube, they're all just a bunch of communists. Look, I get it. I understand. I'm getting hit too, but let's talk about solutions now. I'm sick of all the crybaby and oppression stuff.
And to get your point about
solution number one is removing those in power who are pushing these negative agendas. Solution number two is ending all the policies that they have enacted. Solution number three is removing all the illegals and invaders that are raping and robbing and destroying our country. After that, we can work with the rest.
I guess for me, it's not like we can say, oh, well, all we have to do is get rid of this group and then everything will be fine. It's more of the lines of like, okay, how are we gonna? Because first off, if you want to enact legislation or anything, you have to have like a majority of your people or like-minded people. And so it's like, how do you start that process? How, like, and then once you get there, like, what things are you gonna push?
We're already doing that by trying to tell people about the problems. But the problem is we're told that we're crazy. But we've actually got a large following. We've got hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. And if we just work together instead of bigger, niche fucking ideas about how we're blame for something, and actually agree upon the fact that it is Jewish supremacists pushing these policies, if we stop caring if they call us racist and all of this shit, we can actually just get police officers and military members away from the issue and have them help us arrest these people. That's step number one. Waking up the police and military.
Interesting.
Yeah, I agree with that. We're past the 3-hour mark. So, Victor, you want to give your take on this, and then you guys can say what you want, and then and then you guys could bounce out, and then I'll just, talk to the chat real quick, and then I'll end it.
Yeah, all I gotta say is to all these individuals who are maybe fans of yours, one, don't spend too many hours on the computer, because it doesn't really help. The meme war was fun 2 years ago, but when it comes to actually getting stuff done, you really should educate yourself. One, go take a list, find out everyone who's your local representative, from your township level up to your state representative, to your state senator, to your congressman, up to your senator, to your governor. Find out who is supposed to be looking out for your interest. And two, join your local city and county newspaper, and try to involve yourself at the maybe local level, because informing yourself at what goes on at the local level, you really have more say what goes on at your local township than you really do when it comes to these large scale big issues. So just inform yourself and never cook, but always have yourself informed, and try to always never respect the narrative, and always make sure yourself's always in the right.
I like all that, Victor. Those are good points.
Yeah.
All right, I'll see you in the chat then after this is over.
Yeah.
And Dr. Strangelove, do you have any final points?
No. Basically, everybody needs to stop complaining, stop bickering. We need to get Knicker thoughts like Zeus under control, because they're not adding anything really of value to the movement. And we need to go after people who are actually our enemies and have the police arrest them. That's the only thing we can't do.
Yeah, that's good stuff. If Zeus is if he's acting too spurgy or anything like that, I'll put him in spurgatory for a little bit, let him calm down. All right, but I'll see you in the chat then after this is over.
Later.
All right, see you. All right, so let's see how many viewers are left, because obviously the the Streamlabs view counter does not work ever. I think it works like once I get rid of it and then start a new stream, but that seems way too annoying to have to do constantly. But yeah, so I just wanted to give you guys a quick rundown of what we are talking about, and it's a very interesting chat. Last week, it was kind of like all over, or not last week, but the week before that, it was kind of all over the place where I did my first Google Hangouts. It was good to actually be able to do something different. But I
Yeah,
like.
there's some.
Are you still?
Yeah, there's some still in here.
Oh, okay.
Are you still on air?
Yeah. I'm just gonna do a final little thing, and then I'll jump. And then I'll see you guys in the chat. If you want to voice chat, just go into voice chat number 1, and then and I'll jump in there once I'm done. All right. Yeah. So it was. I like this much better because I can do like my own little show thing. I can have like the waiting room, the music, and all of that stuff, and I have way more control here on OBS than I do with Google Hangouts, and I don't really know how to use it that well. But this I feel very comfortable with. I like this. I like that I'm able to be able to talk to people, but at the same time do it in this environment that I'm comfortable with. So I was very excited that I've been able to slowly. The show has gone from like kind of like a garbage show because I don't really put much effort. I'm just here making content. That's my main pledge to you guys is I will stream every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That's my pledge. I don't know. I'll do it for at least an hour, and I'm not really sure what I'll talk about, but I'll talk about stuff for at least an hour. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are like, and I haven't really said exactly like what times of the day. So I've been doing it for almost like 2 months now. So being flexible, I'm able to do it. But yeah, this was a great show. I'm very excited. I've been able to get so many things going because I'm not very good with technology. So to have like a good waiting room going, to have like the music work, to have be able to use like now I have Discord, so maybe now more I could just do maybe every single show should be Discord orientated where you guys could jump in. Maybe Fridays, it seems a little bit funner. Like me just talking into a camera. Seems pretty boring because I like having conversations with other people. I like doing my own thing, but when it comes to this kind of stuff, I like to have more of like a Joe Rogan type feel to it, where it's a conversation between multiple people. My ego isn't big enough to where I could just rant to you guys as if I'm some sort of, like Roman senator giving rhetoric on what we should do next about X, Y, and Z. But yeah, this was a great chat. It's interesting how we went from talking about like dinosaurs to like giants, to talking about like kind of race realism stuff, to talking about like ancient Rome, and then we kind of ended on like censorship and solutions that should be done. So it was like wide array of stuff, flat earther stuff too, dinosaur stuff. Just a lot of cool stuff, and I thought it was very interesting. I don't think you would hear this kind of conversation anywhere else, and I like that we're able to talk about a very diverse amount of topics. It's not boring. Yeah, so I really liked it. I could see the Friday and Sunday shows both being like this. Only weapons made from copper can kill Nephilim. Isn't that like a Nephilim? Isn't that like a mix between a human and a angel or something like that? Well, you have Samaria on. I wouldn't be against it, but at the same time, like if I have an issue with someone, I will say, look, this is my issue, and then I'll say like what happens after that. And I'm not going to start looking past issues. Like if that issue isn't solved, then the situation remains the same. So that's what I'll say. And I'm not into drama so much that I'll have like people come on here just to like for the views and subs. If I think that it'll be a positive situation, I'll usually do it. But if it's going to turn into an absolute shit show, usually I won't do it. Yeah. So I don't know. I wouldn't really say for sure because she's not like a full blown like enemy or anything like that. But I will say that she's done some scummy stuff. Like, look, I told her not to. I said, hey, look, I'm friends with you. You're doing some things that go against your own principles, not even mine. I don't think that's a good thing when people are going against their own principles. And and you're also being very tight with people that aren't very trustworthy. And we saw what happened, right? We saw a certain someone throw her under the bus the minute it benefited him. You know, I think I even heard that she was supposedly being threatened of being doxxed, her and her entire family, by the said people that I said weren't very trustworthy. So there you go. You know, I can usually, I'm very good with behaviors, so I can tell when someone's being a scumbag, and I could tell, like, look, if you're gonna be tight with these people, it could end bad because these people only care about themselves. So if it benefits them to throw you under the bus, that's what they're gonna do. But yeah, to all the people that stayed and watched, I thought this was a great show. 3 hours, it seems pretty good. I did it kind of early, so I don't feel too tired. I was drinking some coffee and had some good stuff going. Bulletproof coffee, not from the Bulletproof, company, just kind of like just made coffee through organic butter and coconut oil in there. I'm trying it out. It's gonna be difficult because Emily's a huge carb monster, so I don't know if I can actually keep that up long term. But I'm trying. But I know a lot of people dropped off after like the first hour. We were talking about a lot of subjects here. I hope you guys liked it. If you guys can please join the Discord. If you guys want announcements on what's going on, if you guys want announcements as to what's going on, you're going to get it from the Discord. If you want to talk to me and everyone else, join the Discord. If you want to be on these little shows and you can air out whatever you want, you can just join the Discord. Fair enough. I just wanted to know why she turned on TWE. If you want, I'd say join the Discord and we could talk about that kind of stuff. But I don't like airing that stuff out publicly. I don't. As much as I like chaos, so to speak, I don't really like creating it. If it's already created, I will jump in on it. Of course, you guys know that I jumped on the Kumite. And I like watching Andy Worski and that kind of stuff. I like the high IQ stuff, but I also like the chaos too. But I won't create it. I'm not going to publicly air out anyone's information. I'll tell you guys kind of what's going on, but I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want to name anybody unless that person deserves it. And usually it's very rare, It's very rare that anyone really deserves it. Usually I'll criticize people and I'll say, hey, isn't this a little weird? But for the most part, I don't like creating drama. That's why I try to lead away from putting out information or that kinds of stuff. Because then if I do that, then they might do the same thing to me, and it turns into this big poo throwing contest that leads everyone, covered in poo, right? And no one wants that. So I'll just say thank you guys for watching. Hey, if you guys want to join the Discord. And also, if you guys wanted to ever donate, the link is right there. That's for me. Thank you, Teddy. Thank you to anyone that's actually stayed the whole 3 hours. I don't think it's really anyone that stayed the whole 3 hours, but this is basically this is what I'll do on hopefully every single Sunday. I'm not going to say for sure because I don't want to be held to it, and possibly Fridays because I thought this was pretty fun. But yeah, join the Discord. Thank you guys for watching, and stay white, everybody.